Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had Healing Kiss Quirk. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. The training room shook as Bakugo's signature move collided with Kirishima, sending the redhead flying into the nearest wall and cracking it on impact. Excellent work as always, Bakugo, their teacher Mr. Izawa droned. Kirishima, work on your dodging, you should have easily evaded that move. Right, sir? Kirishima stood, wiping some sweat from his brow and frowning at the large cut he found on his arm. I must have lost control of my hardening when I hit the wall. Izawa moved closer to inspect the wound. It looks fine, but go see recovery girl just in case. Bakugo moved to the side as the next pair from Class 1A prepared to spar, watching as his friend left for the infirmary. The redhead didn't return for the rest of the class PRD, only reappearing during lunchtime when he plopped down next to his friends with a completely healed arm and a dopey, contented grin. What's with the face? Ashido inquired while Kaminari snickered at his friend's expression. It's the nurse, the redhead sighed dreamily. Recovery girl? Isn't she 100? Not her, there's someone new. A student from General Studies is working with recovery girl in the infirmary now. He's beautiful. Next to Ashido, Jiru snorted. You dopey idiot, how many drags did that guy give you? No drags, something better. You guys should totally get injured, best thing to happen to me. Bakugo rolled his eyes. He didn't enjoy conversing with most people, but this current topic was even dumber than the ones his lunch mates usually came up with. Ashido hummed. Do you think this means recovery girl's looking to retire? I know she's a bit older, but I like her healing hugs. Kaminari shrugged. Well, if her intern is in our year, it won't be for a while. Hey, Kirishima, how old was this guy? If Kirishima heard him, he paid the blonde no mind, staring glassy-eyed at the ceiling. Bakugo stabbed at his food. Leave the moron to his daydreaming. Not like he's ever had anything useful to say before. The others simply ignored their explosive friend, far too used to his mean words and foul temper to take any offense. The next injury happened for Class 1A a few days later, when Aide and Uraraka failed their mission drill in All Might's class. Will you be all right, young students? Their teacher's voice boomed out. Uraraka nodded. I just have a cut on my cheek, but Aide's shoulder should be checked out. I'll walk him to the infirmary. Next to Jiru, Kirishima perked up. The infirmary? His friends groaned as the redhead started gushing about the assistant nurse, Uraraka shooting him a confused look as she walked out. When the two returned for their next class, Aide was completely red in the face, Uraraka's cheeks pinker than normal, yet their wounds were completely gone. Kirishima leaned forward. He was there, wasn't he? Come on, spill. Aide's face turned even redder as he stammered at the spiky-haired boy, while Uraraka touched her cheek softly, an embarrassed smile on her face. Kaminari looked between the three, perplexed. So, what's this guy's deal? Clearly he has some kind of healing quirk, but why are you guys all acting so weird about it? Once again the blonde's question went unanswered, as Midnight walked in and began the lecture for the day. Throughout the next few days, Class 1A had multiple students visit the infirmary. Azui went in with Ojiro and Hagakure one day, Yaoyorozu and Todoriki the next. Each and every one came back flustered and out of sorts but with no visible injuries. It was clear that whatever technique the new healer was using was strong, as recovery girl's hugs only sped up the healing process. This new quirk seemed to leave no trace of injury at all. None of the patients were willing to share much, often blushing or getting starry-eyed whenever the topic was brought up. Yaoyorozu mentioned that the boy working with recovery girl was in their year, but wouldn't say any more. Kaminari finally had enough. He wanted to know what was happening. It wasn't exactly smart of him to electrocute Bakugo as hard as he did during their sparring that day, as Bakugo slammed him into the ground with far more force than necessary. Bakugo, control yourself. You could have seriously injured Kaminari, Izawa admonished. Take him to the infirmary. I'll go too. Ashido piped up, waving her scraped hand at her teacher. Jairu tagged along as well, seeing as her teacher had completely given up on corralling his students for the day. As the four walked to the infirmary, Bakugo ignored the theorizing his friends were engaging in about the nurse. "You idiots, we're about to find out who the nerd is, so shut the hell up." When they entered the infirmary, a voice called out, "Be right there." The group stared as a boy about their age with curly green hair and a smattering of freckles came into view, a smile on his face. "Sorry about that, how can I, Kachin?" Bakugo felt this throat close up as he took in the sight of Izuku Midoriya, his old childhood friend. They were inseparable as kids, until the Midoriyas moved to another town. They had called and written each other for a while, before eventually falling out of touch. Midoriya must have gotten his quirk late, as there was no mention of it back when they were still in correspondence with each other. Bakugo wasn't sure where to look first: the hair, the eyes, the freckles. Everything was the same, only now on an older face. He was wearing a white lab coat that looked too big for him over his school uniform, with bright red sneakers on his feet. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I go to school here, Kachin," Midoriya told him with a wide grin. "I applied for the hero course, but put in for general studies as well, and good thing I did, or I wouldn't be here at all. Recovery Girl has taken me under her wing, so I may get to be a hero yet, although I'm sure I don't know half as much as you guys do." "So you still talk too much," Bakugo said dazedly, trying to follow the conversation. Midoriya led the group over to the center of the room in order to assess their injuries. "Recovery Girl is out for the minute, so I hope you don't mind me checking you out." Ashido and Kaminari grinned at each other at the double meaning as Midoriya inspected their cuts and bruises one by one. "Kachin, I'm not seeing any— oh, you have a cut on your brow." The scowling blonde was about to wave him off when he felt a soft kiss placed on his temple. The others stared in shock, both at the bravery of the green-haired boy and the wound on Bakugo's head, which had begun to stitch itself closed. Bakugo's entire face turned bright red, unable to process what just happened. Midoriya smiled as he turned away to care for the other patients. Ashido got a kiss on the back of her hand, while Kaminari got a temple kiss as well. It took all of Bakugo's control not to blow up at them. "There, you're all good as new. Take it easy and make sure you eat something later." The group could only nod as they walked out, heading back to their classroom. "Guys, that was crazy," Kaminari said, his eyes slightly unfocused. Jairu, who didn't have an injury and thus was not treated, took note of her friend's reactions. "It seems his quirk has some kind of anesthetic side effects, depending on the severity of the injury." The theory held water. Ashido and Bakugo were embarrassed but aware of their surroundings, while Kaminari, who had a more severe injury, was completely out of it. When they returned to class, everyone turned to look at them. "Ah, I see Midoriya was working today," Aide commented, taking in Kaminari's dopey expression. Several faces turned red around the room, and Bakugo snapped. "You're telling me you kissed every one of you?" "Calm down, Bakugo," Uraraka piped up. "It's just because of his quirk. It didn't mean anything. And why are you calling Midoriya Deku?" Bakugo merely flipped the girl off, garnering an affronted sound from her as he trudged over to his seat. He heard Kirishima mention needing to get beat up more, and his mood soured further. There came to be an injury competition of sorts in Class 1A, where students were hoping for some kind of injury during training so they could rush to the infirmary. Students like Aoyama, Tokoyami, and Ojiro seemed to be above purposefully injuring themselves just to see the cute, green-eyed nurse's aide, but students like Kaminari, Kirishima, and Ashido were more than happy to take a few extra hits to the face. Todoroki gave his all in training now, using both sides of his quirk to everyone's surprise. When asked, he'd smile and say something about a good talk before leaving for a rest at the infirmary. Bakugo once caught the BSTRD walking into the infirmary with 2 lunches and then stayed in there for an hour. Uraraka wouldn't stoop to harming herself, but she, Ida, and Yaoyorozu were always quick to offer escort to the infirmary for the injured. All Might was thrilled to see so many students working hard. Bakugo was said. One day the hothead slammed his hand into a wall before training, walking out the door without so much as telling All Might where he was going. He sat on one of the cots in the infirmary as Midoriya cleaned his wound. You heroes sure are accident-prone, he remarked, picking loose gravel out of the blonde's knuckles. Bakugo merely grunted in response, fighting to keep the blush off his face as Midoriya placed a tender kiss to the skin, the wound mending itself in a matter of seconds. It's really nice getting to meet all your friends, Kachin. It makes me feel like I'm part of the class. Bakugo eyed him carefully. How come you weren't able to get in anyways? Did you cry through the whole test? Midoriya lightly punched his arm. No. I just wasn't strong enough, I guess. My quirk lets me sense injuries and heal people, and I can even knock them unconscious if I want, but it doesn't really work on robots, so taking them down was super hard. There were a few injured people I helped which got me some rescue points, but I just barely missed the requirement. It's okay though. Recovery Girl says she might let me do a work study with her next year, and I can still help people. Bakugo had to fight to keep the smile off his face as his friend talked, but it was a losing battle. Shota Aizawa wanted few things in life: 8 hours of sleep, less crime in the world, and control of his students. He had been on his way to the faculty room when a voice called out to him. Mr. Aizawa. The man turned to see Midoriya racing to catch up to him. Can I help you, Midoriya? The boy slowed down to meet the teacher, and Aizawa was surprised to see a determined look on the nurse aide's face. Mr. Aizawa, I don't mean to tell you how to teach, but I'm worried about the 1A students. The man quirked his brow, motioning for the boy to continue. It's just that for the past week I've had most of Class 1A come in to be treated for injuries each day, sometimes multiple times a day. I'd brush it off as just a part of hero training, but only a few students in Class 1B need as much treatment. I'm worried someone might get seriously hurt. Aizawa blinked before letting out a sigh. Problem children. He had nothing but problem children. Attention, Aizawa called from the front of the room. The students fell silent as they turned to look at their teacher. Recently, I've been made aware of several students making multiple unnecessary trips to the infirmary, both in this class and others. Bakugo grit his teeth at the thought of 1B and the other forgettable losers taking trips to get smooched by Deku. I suspect the reason for these trips aren't for the injuries themselves, but for the person healing them. Aizawa's bored eyes swept across the room, taking secret amusement in the blushing faces he saw. From now on, no one is allowed to go to the infirmary unless absolutely necessary. I'm talking sprains, broken bones, or worse. Real heroes can put their own band-aids on. And if I find out anyone has purposefully injured themselves, he paused to look at Kirishima, Ashido, and Kaminari, you will have to dress and care for the injuries yourself. Am I understood? At their nods of confirmation, Aizawa let out a sigh. Good. Now, open your textbooks. Bakugo glared as Midoriya tended to Ojiro's tail, the appendage twisted and dirty. It had truly been an accident, and both Ojiro and Bakugo had to convince Aizawa of that in order to seek medical attention. One of Bakugo's explosions had loosened a wall of one of the training ground's many empty buildings, sending it crashing down on his teammate. Ojiro could still walk, but with his tail twisted to one side he had trouble keeping his balance. I'm so sorry, Ojiro, Midoriya said as they told him what happened. But I promise, you'll be as good as new in no time. He planted a kiss on the other boy's temple, smiling proudly when Ojiro's pained expression smoothed out. He appeared to be asleep. He'll be fine. Now that he's healed, he'll just have to rest here for a while. Bakugo grunted, checking to make sure his classmate was really asleep before approaching. Midoriya. Hey, Deku. Midoriya hummed, his back turned as he made notes in his patient journal. I'm sorry I didn't keep in touch. The boy turned to look at his childhood friend. It's not completely your fault, Kachin. I got busy too. It's hard staying friends that young when you live far away from each other. I'm just happy we get to hang out now. This time, Bakugo did smile at his friend. Me too, Deku. As he left to return to the dorms, Bakugo fumed at the sight of Todoroki loitering outside the infirmary door. What the hell are you doing here, Icy Hot? Waiting to see Midoriya. You're not even hurt, Yubito. The rule is I can't go in without an injury, not that I can't wait for Midoriya's shift to end to walk him home. Like hell you will. I'm waiting here now too. I suggest you leave, Bakugo. Never. Ida let out a frustrated sigh as Todoroki and Bakugo came back to the dorms, both sporting burns that Aizawa wouldn't let Midoriya treat. None of Class 1A was shocked when it was announced that their classmate Mineta had been expelled for inappropriate behavior and forced to leave UA for good. No one really liked him, and Bakugo was thrilled to not have the perv sitting behind him anymore. Aizawa stood in front of his class, looking tired and thoroughly displeased at having to be there. I have another announcement. Due to the opening in our class caused by Mineta's expulsion, Principal Nizu has chosen to move one of the general studies students to the hero program. That's great! Hagakure exclaimed, her invisible form shaking a notebook to express her happiness. It's wonderful that someone else is getting a shot at their dreams, Ida commented. But won't they be at a disadvantage with how late in the year it is? I'm sure we could all pitch in to help them catch up, Yaoyorozu suggested, with several students nodding in agreement. I just want to say that none of this was up to me, Aizawa continued, ignoring his students. To be honest, I'd much rather have 1B take him and be done with it, but here we are. The teacher turned to frown at the door. He should be here by now. As if on cue, the door swung open to reveal Midoriya, a pink flush and brilliant smile on his face. Hi everyone. Sorry I'm late, Mr. Aizawa, recovery girl needed me. I hope you aren't planning to rush off to the infirmary every time a student scrapes their knee anymore. No sir. From now on, recovery girl says I only get to help out in emergencies. Sorry about the cut on your hand, I'm not allowed to work on adults, he said sheepishly. I'm well aware, Midoriya. Aizawa didn't care for some of the jealous looks he was seeing from his students at the mere suggestion of Izuku using his quirk on the teacher, not one bit. Midoriya. It's so great to see you. I can't believe you're gonna be a hero with us. Ashido gushed, the others smiling and nodding as well. So, did you pick out a hero name yet? Kirishima asked him, eyes zeroing in on the green-haired boy's flushed cheeks. I picked it this morning. Pucker up. Get it? Hatsume's even making me a costume. Would you please take your seat, Midoriya? Aizawa drawled, wanting to be anywhere but his classroom. Of course. Midoriya took the empty seat behind Bakugo, the blonde flashing a smirk at the looks he got from his classmates. Nice to have you away from the losers, Deku. I'm happy to see you too, Kachin. The boy looked up at his friend before looking away, a blush forming on his cheeks. Bakugo wanted to take a picture of it. Oh, and no kissing anyone during class. Got that, Midoriya? Sir, yes sir. Midoriya gave his teacher a salute, and the man sighed. Problem children. Bonus. Midoriya was moved into the 1A dorms later that day, which sparked a new debate. His room should be next to mine. No, mine. He can't even sleep on your side, Uraraka. The boys aren't allowed in that wing. Midoriya watched in bemusement as his new classmates argued. Mr. Aizawa, who was holding one of the boys' boxes, let out a sigh. Obviously, Midoriya is going to be taking Mineta's old room. It's already been cleaned and prepped for him. Todoroki stepped forward, gently taking the boxes out of a blushing Midoriya's arms. Allow me. Damn it, icy hot. If anyone's carrying Deku's crap, it's me. I should do it as class representative dash. Shove it, Ida. I want to carry his stuff. Aizawa placed the box he was holding on the floor and walked out of the dorm, never looking back. Shota Aizawa fervently believed that UA's devious principal was punishing him for something. In the weeks since Izuku Midoriya was transferred into Class 1A to join the hero course, things had mellowed out for the class as a whole, or at least as mellow as things ever could be at UA. It wasn't until one afternoon during combat training when Midoriya, who up to that point had been wearing the generic UA gym clothes, received his costume from the support department that events turned chaotic once more. I think I may have given Hatsume a little too much creative control over the design, Midoriya remarked sheepishly. The students of 1A could only stare as their friend stepped out in his pucker-up hero suit. It was at its base a green jumpsuit with armor like patches on the knees and elbows, complete with white boots, knuckle dusters, and a utility belt. Hatsume's additions included a pair of white heart-shaped goggles and kiss marks patterned along the arms and back. I don't know whether to thank Hatsume or strangle her, Ashido whispered hotly to Azui, who nodded in agreement. He's just so cute. I think you look very nice, Midoriya. Uraraka complimented, glaring at Zero, who had mouthed the words, kiss, but to her when Midoriya wasn't looking. Indeed, mon cher, Aoyama agreed, his eyes sparkling. Your outfit has almost as much flair as mine. I don't know, it's not very intimidating, Midoriya complained, wiggling a little in his suit. Behind him, Todoroki was beginning to catch fire. All right, that's enough, Aizawa interrupted, desperate to get off the subject. We need to run drills. Everyone pair up, except you, Midoriya. At the boy's questioning look, he clarified. You're working with me today. Oh, okay. The boy grinned, oblivious to the outraged looks of his classmates behind him. Aizawa ignored his students' heated glares. They were an odd-numbered class to begin with, only having 19 students originally, and swapping in Midoriya to replace Mineta kept the numbers odd. When Mineta was still a part of the class, no one would work with him, and as the teacher, Aizawa was always forced to run drills and spar with the little cretin. Working with Midoriya personally would allow everyone a partner, give Aizawa the chance to gauge his new students' experience level and, hopefully, keep his other students from getting distracted. Aizawa shifted his stance. Are you ready, Midoriya? I am, sir. Give it to me. Not far away, the pair of Kirishima and Kaminari choked and spluttered at the choice of words. Aizawa sighed. As they ran through the drills, Aizawa noted that, while his newest student was weaker than the others, he had potential. Now that you're in the hero course, we'll have to work on strengthening your quirk, the man said as the two finished their drills. Strengthening my quirk? Midoriya asked, wiping his brow. Yes. Up until now, you've only ever had to use your quirk as it first appeared to you as a child. Working with Recovery Girl no doubt gave you some experience, but the hero course will demand much more of you. Midoriya nodded, and Aizawa continued. We need to test the limits of your quirk, expand its usefulness. There aren't many instances where a villain will let you get close enough to kiss them. There better not be, Yaoyorozu muttered to Jiraiya. Midoriya nodded. You're right, in order to catch up with everyone, I'll have to practice my quirk as much as possible. That's not dash, Aizawa cut himself off with a sigh, as the rest of 1A grinned hopefully. This is not going to end well, the man thought to himself. Ultimately, Class 1A was dismayed to find out that Midnight and All Might would be catching Midoriya up on his training, effectively ruining their chances of participating. Midnight thinks I may be able to use my quirk in a bunch of different ways, Midoriya reported to his class happily one evening, the students lounging in the common room after dinner. That's excellent, Midoriya. Ida praised, the class rep sitting next to the boy on the couch. The spot on Midoriya's opposite side was taken by Uraraka seconds after the boy sat down, earning the girl more than a few nasty looks as she grinned triumphantly. Actually, Ida, I was hoping you could help me. I noticed you have a scrape on your hand from training. Ida flushed, but nodded enthusiastically. Of course, how can I dash? His sentence was cut off by Midoriya leaning in close, rubbing his nose against the bespectacled boys. The scrape remained. Interesting, Midoriya muttered, pulling out a notebook and scribbling down notes as Ida's face became an alarming shade of red. Midnight theorized that I might be able to get different effects with different kinds of kisses, but I guess butterfly kisses don't work. All conversations immediately came to a halt the second Midoriya's nose came into contact with Ida's, with several frosty looks sent the taller boy's way. Jiraiya's earplugs were poised to attack, and Sato had to swallow 2 lumps of sugar just to hold Bakugo at bay. Poor Ida had just gotten his heart rate back down, only to have it skyrocket once more as Midoriya swooped in to give him a proper kiss, pecking him on the cheek to heal the class rep's scrape. I guess I'll just have to keep trying, Midoriya said brightly, standing from the couch and heading for the stairs. Once Midoriya was out of the room, Ida stood and, with as much dignity as he could muster, raced back to his room before Bakugo could maim him. A day later, All Might had Midoriya try a different tactic. Young Bakugo here has an injury from picking a fight the other day, the hero announced, proudly displaying the black eye and split lip the boy got from attacking Ida. I want you to use your quirk to knock him unconscious, but without healing his injuries. Okay, All Might. I'll do my best. At the edge of the field, the rest of Class 1A watched enviously as the healer moved over to Bakugo, his face pinched in concentration, before placing a kiss on his cheek. Bakugo fell flat on his back, out cold, his injuries healed. "Worry not, young Midoriya." All Might reassured him at the sight of the boy's downtrodden expression. "That's what practice is for, to make mistakes." Midoriya perked up slightly. "Yeah, you're right." He turned to his classmates. "Is anyone else injured?" At once, the students of Class 1A began frantically checking themselves for injuries. All Might chuckled. Shoji wasn't used to talking to Midoriya yet, as he hadn't had any serious injuries since the boy began working in the infirmary. Needless to say, he was appropriately flustered and apprehensive when the green-haired boy approached him as class ended one day. "I was wondering if you'd let me give you a kiss over your mask," Midoriya began as the two walked back to the dorms. "I noticed Mr. Ectoplasm wears a mask when he's in his costume, and I'll bet lots of villains cover their faces when fighting too. I need to know if my quirk will still work if my opponent's face is covered." Shoji was all too aware of both Kirishima and Ojiro stomping behind them, watching the two intensely. Sure," he said nervously as they reached the door to the 1A dorms. "Perfect." Midoriya wasted no time planting a soft kiss on Shoji's cheek through the boy's face covering. "I feel dizzy," Shoji complained, swaying from side to side. That I meant to knock you unconscious, which means the layer of protection diminished the efficacy of the attack," Midoriya muttered to himself, pulling out his notebook once again and jotting down the results. Shoji stumbled into the dorms, frazzled. "Thanks for the help, Shoji," Midoriya called out, blithely unaware of the two boys staring wistfully after him. Aizawa had to fight the urge to call out sick the day it was his turn to oversee Class 1, as training, knowing who was next up for this particular drill. "Bakugo, Midoriya, this drill is a simple rescue mission," the teacher began. "The rest of your classmates are scattered around the disaster zone, posing as injured civilians. Each one will have a card detailing the specifics of their injuries. Your job is to find the best way to evacuate each civilian without exacerbating their wounds. Got it?" "Yes, Mr. Aizawa," Midoriya replied eagerly. Bakugo grunted. "All right then, you have 30 minutes, go." They raced into the disaster zone, stopping once they reached the top of a raised building overlooking the area. "Our best bet is to split up, each taking a section of the area," Midoriya strategized, beginning to mumble. "That way we can help more civilians. You can carry out any victims that aren't seriously injured, and I can dress the wounds of the victims that are." He pulled a roll of gauze out of his utility belt, handing it to Bakugo, who eyed him suspiciously. "Here, you can use this for minor injuries." "What else do you have in that belt, Deku?" "Oh, just more gauze, some band-aids, antiseptic and chapstick." "Chapstick? Well yeah, I don't want to get chapped lips from using my quirk." Bakugo let out a growl. "Whatever, just move your butt and don't kiss anyone." The two split up, Bakugo taking the right-hand section, Midoriya taking the left. Most of the injured classmates Midoriya found had simple injuries, according to their info cards. The green-haired boy wrapped gauze on injured arms and legs and placed band-aids on cut cheeks and scraped knees, sending the disappointed students to the safe zone without a single kiss. Everything was going well until Midoriya found Todoroki laying inside a dilapidated building. "Don't worry, Todoroki, I'm here to help," Midoriya exclaimed, using his best hero voice. The dual-haired boy just smiled, handing over his card. Midoriya gasped as he studied the card, eyes widening. "This says you have multiple contusions to your extremities, broken bones, internal bleeding, a possible concussion. You're in serious need of attention." "Yep," Todoroki grinned, grateful to have selected the best card of the bunch. Midoriya put on a bright smile, just like the one he always saw on All Might in rescue videos. "Fear not, citizen. Pucker Up is here to help." Todoroki's grin widened. Bakugo frowned as he dropped Ida unceremoniously to the ground. "Careful, Bakugo. My card says I have a broken leg and an injured shoulder. You can't just drop me like that." Bakugo rolled his eyes. "Whatever." With Ida now in the safe zone, he had successfully cleared out his side of the disaster zone, the blonde now searching through Midoriya's side for more survivors. He found the freckled boy in a building, peppering kisses all over a smug-looking Todoroki's face. He saw red. Just what the hell do you think you're doing, Deku? His info card said he was severely wounded and couldn't be moved. I had to caution. Stupid Deku, does he look wounded to you? Does he? I'm in incredible pain, I need more kisses. You stay out of this, icy hot bee. Deku frowned up at his blonde friend. The info card said he could be dying. Not yet, but he's gonna be. Please calm down, Kachin. Yeah, Kachin. That does it. From the control room, Izuku sighed. He knew the second he finished making those cards there'd be trouble, but proper rescue drills were a key part of the curriculum. He watched as explosions began firing off in the distance, the civilians now fleeing the safe zone to seek shelter. He sighed again, another failed mission. I still can't believe Bakugo and Todoroki went at each other like that. Yaoyorozu nodded at Shiro's comment, the two sitting with Midoriya and Ishido at one of the lunch tables Class 1A frequently used. I just wish Mr. Izuku would let me heal them, Midoriya commented, a worried look on his face. Cuts and scrapes are one thing, but burns like theirs can be really unpleasant. Kaminari scoffed, stabbing at his food. Serves them right for ruining the mission, Bakugo especially. I guess, it's just hard for me to see them in pain like that. As a healer and a hero, it's my duty to save as many people as I can, and to make sure no one ever has to suffer if I can help it. The boy took a bite of his katsudon, unaware of his table mate swooning at his statement. You really are meant to be a hero, Midoriya, Yaoyorozu told him, earning a bright smile in return. Ishido, who had been reapplying lip gloss, paused, looking at the item in her hand before turning to her freckled friend. Hey Midoriya, do you think you could still use your quirk with something on your mouth, like lip gloss? The boy in question tapped his cheek thoughtfully. I don't know, I've never worn anything on my lips other than chapstick, so there might be some differences in how well my powers work with a barrier made of a thicker substance. Well, why don't you give it a try? The innocent question garnered several looks from the table, ranging from shock to intrigue to dread. As a general rule, Class 1A tried to keep Midoriya from using his quirk in front of the other students, more so out of jealousy than propriety. The others knew Midoriya was too curious for his own good, which meant the outcome was inevitable. Sure thing, let's do it. The others could only watch as Ishido applied 2 layers of gloss to the healer's lips, leaving them a sparkling pink. Now all we need is a test subject. Midoriya turned to Yaoyorozu, who was already beginning to buckle at the look her friend gave her. Momo, would it be okay if I tried using my quirk on you? She could see the looks of betrayal from her table mates, as well as from Ida, Azui and Uraraka from the next table over, but she nodded her head regardless. Oh, of course. The boy smiled, before leaning in and placing a kiss on her cheek. She felt a slight stickiness from the gloss and something else. I felt tingly. It's different from how I've felt before from your quirk, it's less intense. I see. Midoriya pulled out his notebook once again, writing down notes to go over with Midnight and muttering about usefulness in combat. Thanks for the help, Momo. The dark-haired girl couldn't help but smile, a light flush on her cheeks. Anytime, Izuku. No fair, why is she on a first-name basis with Midoriya? Shiro grumbled, Kaminari and Ishido nodding in agreement. Walking past the table, Sato and Hagakure paused at the sight of Midoriya's sparkly lips. That lip gloss looks so cute on you. Hagakure gushed. I wish stuff like that looked good on me. I'm sure it would look amazing on you, Hagakure. You're so sweet, Midoriya. In the end, Midoriya decided it simply wasn't practical to wear something that hindered his powers, much to the disappointment of the rest of 1A. So Midoriya, have you learned anything new about your quirk? It was the end of the week, and Midoriya was meeting Izuku for an update on his progress. Yes, sir. All Might has been helping me a lot, and Miss Midnight and I have even been working on some signature moves. That's a great start. You've come a long way since joining my class. Thank you, sir. That means a lot. It's just... Izuku gave his student a questioning look, the boy staring out the window with a worried expression. All my classmates have been acting so strangely, And I was wondering, Mr. Aizawa, I don't think my classmates like my quirk. Aizawa choked. Midoriya, I don't think that's it. But the green-eyed healer was already muttering to himself about his powers and the strange behavior of his classmates and the timeline of events. Aizawa let out a long sigh. He was definitely being punished. Bonus. Mr. Aizawa says I can heal your burns, but only if you promise to stop fighting. In the infirmary, Bakugo and Todoroki broke their heated staring contest to look over at Midoriya, who was standing near their cots with a determined expression. Bakugo broke first. Fine, whatever. Truce. Truce. Kiss me first, Midoriya. What? Double-crossing me already, icy hot? Guys, Midoriya admonished, before placing a quick peck on Todoroki's cheek. You're next, Kacchan. Midoriya said brightly, the blonde fighting to keep his face neutral. Yeah, just get on with. He turned his head just as Midoriya leaned in, the healer accidentally kissing the corner of the hothead's mouth. Whoops. Sorry, I got you a little bit there, Kacchan. Bakugo was completely frozen as Midoriya walked away, joining Recovery Girl in assisting another patient. He turned to see a devastated expression on Todoroki's usually blank face, and gave the other boy a shark-like grin. I win, icy hot. I will never know happiness again. Class 1A had mixed feelings when they found out that Midoriya would be working in the infirmary again on Saturdays. Aizawa had made it clear that the boy wouldn't be allowed to work there during school hours, but had little to no say in what the healer did in his spare time. And so Midoriya returned to the infirmary to work with Recovery Girl, prompting the rest of his classmates to hold a meeting once he'd gone. Clearly, we can't stop him from working there, Aide began, with Deputy Class Rep Yaoyorozu standing next to him as he addressed the room. It would be wrong to get in the way of Midoriya learning more about his quirk, as well as helping those in need. Bakugo sneered at the taller boy, arms crossed over his chest. You idiot! Are you forgetting what happened the last time he worked there? Every loser and extra in the whole Demon School was in there. That's true, but don't forget that the other teachers implemented the same rule about unnecessary infirmary visits that Mr. Aizawa did, Yaoyorozu reminded him. So it should be reasonable to assume that Midoriya will only be helping those in need. The blonde scoffed, but had no rebuttal. Besides, Recovery Girl is gonna be there the whole time, Kaminari added. So there's nothing to worry about. Little did they know just how wrong their friend was. A few weeks after Midoriya began working Saturdays with Recovery Girl, some of the 1A students proposed an outing. I was thinking we could all go see that new horror movie this weekend, Ishido suggested one day after class. I hear it's really good. That sounds awesome. Kirishima exclaimed, the redhead grinning. Scary movies are totally my thing. I'm down, Jiraiya added, with Tokoyami, Todoroki, Uraraka and Ida agreeing to go as well. I wish I could join you, but I have a charity event my parents are hosting that I have to attend, Yaoyorozu mentioned sheepishly, still uncomfortable with talking about her family and their wealth with the others. Hey Midoriya, Kirishima called out as the greenette entered the common room. A bunch of us are gonna go see a horror movie this weekend, wanna join? Next to the freckled boy, Bakugo snorted. Deku doesn't do scary movies, makes him cry like a baby. Midoriya glared at him. I'm not 6 anymore, Kacchan. I can totally watch scary movies now. Count me in, Kirishima. I can pay for your ticket, Midoriya, Todoroki offered, which drew a sound of outrage from Bakugo. As if icy hot. If anyone's paying for his ticket, it's me. Guys? I'll buy his snacks then. Guys dash. Like hell you will. Guys. Midoriya finally managed to cut in. I can pay for my own ticket and snacks, honest. I've made quite a bit of money working at the infirmary. Ida turned to him. Oh? I didn't realize Recovery Girl was paying you for your work, Midoriya. The group became suspicious as the green-eyed boy's cheeks pinked, his expression sheepish. It's kind of tip money, actually. What? It was Recovery Girl's idea. Midoriya defended, putting his hands up. She put a tip jar in the infirmary because she said I deserved something for my efforts. I told her that as a future hero, seeing people healthy was reward enough, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. Midoriya, Todoroki said calmly, although those standing next to him could feel the temperature dropping. How much have you made so far? Midoriya looked well and truly embarrassed, which filled his classmates with dread. He opened his school bag and pulled out a fat stack of yen, the notes organized by color to show the ranging amounts people were tipping him. I was gonna take this to the bank this weekend, which I guess I can do before we go see the movie. At his classmates' expressions, he started rambling again. I told you guys it wasn't my idea. I even tried to get some of the students to take their money back, but they wouldn't. At least this way I can afford to do stuff with you guys, in fact dash. He turned to Uraraka, lowering his voice so the others couldn't hear. I can pay for you too if that's alright. I know money's a bit tight for you and your family, and this way I can put some of this to good use. Normally, Uraraka would be embarrassed at the thought of someone paying for her, but given who was offering and the jealous looks she was getting from her classmates, she readily accepted. Thanks, Izuku. That's really sweet of you. The boy just beamed at her as she gave the others her signature competitive face, full of determination and estism. In the end, Midoriya was the only one who wasn't afraid or perturbed by the movie, the boy laughing at the screen as the jump scares and gore freaked out his classmates. Midoriya's heart is truly a dark and twisted place. To find revelry in such horror, Tokoyami declared, looking away from the screen. Next to the healer, Uraraka clung to the oblivious boy's arm, hiding her face in his shoulder. On Midoriya's other side, Todoroki narrowed his eyes at the girl. Well played, Uraraka. Well played. Once the rest of Class 1A had been informed of how much money Midoriya was making, they called together another meeting while the boy was away. Clearly we've misjudged the underhanded and dishonest ways of our fellow students, Aide remarked. We must find a way to handle this. I say we kill Bakugo said darkly, and the class rep was disturbed by how many people he saw nodding along to the hothead suggestion. Whatever we do must be discreet and non-violent, lest Mr. Aizawa find out what we're up to. Hey, isn't he at the infirmary right now? Sato asked. We could go spy on him, see what's happening in there. I could do it. Hagakure offered. I'm already invisible, and I've been working on my sneaking around. Just don't wear that perfume you like, Jiru commented, scrunching her nose. You could smell that stuff all the way from Europe. Very well, Hagakure. Aide agreed. We will entrust this mission to you. Please report back with your findings as soon as you can. Not 15 minutes after the girl had left, Hagakure came rushing back in, making as much noise as possible to alert the others. It's awful. She cried out, pulling her clothes back on as she did. You have to come see. What happened? Sato asked, the large boy concerned at how upset his normally bubbly friend was. I couldn't even get in. Just come look. The rest of the class rushed after her as she took off for the infirmary once more, the group freezing at the sight. A line? AF line. Bakugo raged. There was indeed a line from the infirmary door that stretched down the hallway. The students turned to look at the 1A students. Ah, if it isn't the shameful 1A students who poached the wonderful Midoriya all for themselves, Class 1B's instigator Monoma called out. You thought you could keep him from us, Well, no more, I say. No more. Kendo, who normally kept the blonde from being too obnoxious, was surprisingly nodding along with him. I hate to say it, but Monoma's right. We've all missed having Midoriya here to treat our wounds. This is far worse than I could have imagined, Aide breathed out. You BSs are gonna pay for this, Bakugo growled lowly. Bakugo and Todoroki made a frightening duo when they put their differences aside and worked together, and nothing motivated them to do so more than Midoriya, for while it was true they couldn't stand seeing one another or Class 1A with the boy instead of with themselves, they agreed that seeing him with anyone outside of their class was even worse. Together, the two were able to scare off most of the business, general studies and even some support students, although they agreed that it was unlikely Hatsum had any ulterior motives. The girl cared only for her babies and would only seek treatment if she really needed it. Though one night, as Midoriya came back to the dorms after spending the day in the infirmary, the two realized there was an even bigger challenge than facing down the non-hero students. Midoriya, I don't remember seeing you leave with that sweatshirt, Aide mentioned carefully, already seeing the hackles rise on his fellow classmates. Midoriya looked down. He was wearing a dark blue hoodie that was at least 2 sizes too big for him, the hem reaching his thighs and the drawstrings tied into a lopsided bow. Oh, this isn't mine, it's Mirio's. Mirio? As in Mirio Togata? Of the big 3? That Mirio? Ida choked out, his blood pressure beginning to rise. Yep, that's the one. Mirio's always injuring himself, so I would see him in the infirmary all the time. He said he missed me when I was gone, but I think that's just because Recovery Girl lectures him more than I do. Anyway, it was cold out today and I forgot my jacket, so Mirio let me borrow his. Ooh, Kachin. What are you making? Bakugo stared dumbly at the boy, glaring at the sweater he was wearing. Katsudon. My favorite. Izuku chirped, his smile bright. He was unaware of the distraught looks the others were giving him as he plopped down at his normal seat at the dining table. Behind him, Todoroki and Bakugo shared a look. It was true that they were objectively the strongest of the first-year hero students, and stronger than some of the second years as well, but Mirio was in the top 3 hero students in the whole school, and he had way more experience fighting than they did. It was clear this was one problem they couldn't deal with on their own. As the others quickly began to fall apart, Azui, the most level-headed of her class, came up with a way to handle the current situation in front of her. Hey Midoriya, you should probably take that sweater off before you eat. HM? Why is that, Sue? Well, you're just borrowing it, right? She reasoned. You wouldn't want to get any food stains on it if you happen to drop anything. Oh, you're right. I'll go get changed. The entire class felt a wave of relief and affection for their froggy friend, which was quickly washed away as the girl led Midoriya upstairs. Come on, I've got some really warm sweaters, I don't mind you getting dirty. Thanks, Tsu. I'd really appreciate it. Treason, Ida whispered as the two disappeared upstairs. High treason from the most unexpected of us. Azui's face was blank all throughout dinner, but the others could tell how pleased she was seeing Midoriya happily eating his food, wearing a yellow sweater that belonged to her. Kirishima had been training with Midoriya when the terrible news was given. The two were sparring, working on Midoriya's physical strength and reflexes. Kirishima knew better than to just hand the match over to the green-eyed boy, and so he gave it his all, not holding back and making sure Midoriya couldn't get within kissing distance. Eventually, with a burst of speed, Midoriya shot through Kirishima's defenses and smacked a kiss on the redhead's chin, part of his top lip meeting Kirishima's bottom lip. The taller boy was knocked out almost immediately. When Kirishima came to, Midoriya was smiling down at him, handing him a bottle of water. You're getting a lot better at close combat, he complimented his friend, the two now sitting on the grass next to the training field. Midoriya grinned. Thanks. I'm getting better with my quirk, too. You were only out for a few seconds this time. Kirishima blushed at the memory of his crush kissing, him, Midoriya too lost in his ramblings to notice. Mirio says he can help me a lot more with my training, since Miss Midnight is on a mission right now, the healer commented, unaware of the jealous glint in the redhead's eyes. When Aizawa saw his hard-headed student rushing over to him after class one day, a steely look in his eye, he knew it. Could only be about one thing. He sighed. How can I help you, Kirishima? Sir, you can't let Togata be in charge of Midoriya's training. The pleading tone in his student's voice almost enough to make the man feel bad for him. You know what training with Midoriya means. There's a reason he's always in the infirmary now. Togata's only in it for the kisses. And you aren't? Aizawa asked acerbically, his eyebrow raised. No? No. Of course not. Mirio is one of UA's big 3. I can't think of anyone better to train Midoriya while Midnight's away. But dash. No buts, unless you want Midoriya to train only with Mirio from now on. Kirishima walked away with his head hung low, the taste of defeat bitter on his tongue. The worst of it came when Mirio traipsed into the 1A dorms after class one day, a smile on his face and a bag in his hands. Hey Midoriya. Mirio, what are you doing here? Midoriya questioned, unaware of the murderous looks his classmates behind him were giving the blonde. I just came from the infirmary, Recovery Girl wanted me to give you this. He handed the bag over to the greenette, who dumped its contents all over the coffee table. "Oh, are these dash? I think they're thank you cards," the older boy said, still smiling, "for all the healing you do for everybody. You've got quite the fan club, huh?" Midoriya was opening and reading the cards, a soft look on his face no one in Class 1A had ever seen on him before. "This is so sweet, guys, look. One from Amajiki, one from Tetsu, one from Kendo, ooh, even one from Shinso. That's a surprise." "Those BS artists," Bakugo growled. He and Todoroki hadn't managed to stop the other students, they just made them more creative. Hearing the grumbles from the others, Mirio turned to the first years, a confused look on his face. "What is it, guys? You didn't think you were the only ones who gave Midoriya thank you gifts, did you?" "They've never given me thank you gifts," Midoriya commented offhandedly, cooing at a glittery card from Nijire. At once, his classmates began talking over one another, promising cards and gifts and flowers and, in Todoroki's case, a house for them to grow old in together. Midoriya simply laughed off his friends' antics, taking their words in jest. It wasn't until 5 different Dilva men all stood on the 1A dorm's porch, looking at each other with confusion as they handed the boy various bouquets of flowers that he realized they were serious. It was roughly 2 months into Midoriya's part-time nursing that Aizawa called the boy into his office. "You wanted to see me, sir?" he asked, taking a seat. "Midoriya?" Aizawa looked even rougher than usual, his skin sallow, his hair messy, his under-eye circles especially dark. "Midoriya, I beg of you, please stop working in the infirmary." The teacher ignored his student's shell-shocked expression, continuing his rant. "All the petty jealousy, the fights, the constant badgering. Please, just promise me you'll quit." "Mr. Aizawa, I can't just quit. People need me. We have an actual nurse who can handle it, Midoriya." The man was pleading now. "Just think about it, will you?" "Okay, sir, if you really want me to. Only, I don't know if Principal Nizu will let me. He was the one who suggested I go back there part-time in the first place." Aizawa groaned, his head hitting the table with a loud thud. Of course, the devious little rodent was behind the situation, the principal's notorious SDSM streak showing itself once more. As Midoriya left the office, Aizawa couldn't help but wonder if Shiketsu had any job openings, and if there were any kissing agents of chaos studying there, too. Bonus. Tamura Shigaraki, Kurojiri addressed his young boss. "I have the information on the new UA hero student, as you requested." The red-eyed man turned to his underling, eyeing his misty form impatiently. "Well, what did you find?" "It seems the boy is a healer. He's been working in the infirmary a lot with the hero known as Recovery Girl." "I see." Shigaraki could see the potential of having a healer working for him, provided he could get his hands on him. "And is that his quirk?" "Healing." For a dark cloud with only a glowing pair of eyes, Kurojiri looked to his boss to be almost embarrassed. "That's the thing, Shigaraki. He can use his quirk to heal, but... Shigaraki was beginning to lose his patience. "He has to kiss the person first, it seems." "He what?" The class of 1A was buzzing with excitement as Aizawa entered his classroom. They had been informed the day before that the teacher would have some good news to share, and the young heroes could barely contain themselves. "I bet we're getting our provisional licenses," Kaminari exclaimed, fist bumping a grinning Kirishima and a scowling Bakugo. "Ooh, what if it's media coaching, and we'll get to be on TV?" Hagakure gushed. "I bet I'd really stand out in an interview." Assuming that the news pertains to us as a group instead of as individuals, it could be inferred that this news may also apply to the other hero course and perhaps even the others' courses as well, Midoriya muttered to himself, not noticing Ida and Uraraka shooting one another looks of fond exasperation at the display. As Aizawa took his place at the front of the class, the students quieted immediately, much to his approval. Today the school is holding a scouting fair for pro-hero agencies to introduce themselves to the hero students, Aizawa drawled. "You'll be able to speak with some of the top heroes in the field, and even secure future work studies with them if all goes well." "This is incredible!" Ida exclaimed, his classmates showing a similar amount of enthusiasm. "It's an honor to be able to speak with such incredible heroes, especially so early in our academic careers. The school board decided this was the best way to give you a taste of what being a professional hero means, while also keeping you safe. Izuku may have looked incredibly bored, but internally he was thrilled. Aside from keeping an eye out in general at the fair, his students would be left to their own devices, meaning he would be blissfully free of the Midoriya Class 1A drama for a glorious 2.5 hours. "We'll be meeting out on the training grounds in 25 minutes, he informed the students. "Be there on time and in your costumes." As Class 1A walked to the training grounds fully costumed, Midoriya theorized about who could possibly be there. Obviously heroes like Best Jeanist and Fourth Kind make the most sense, given they both have agencies of their own and take on interns frequently, but there's also the possibility of some lesser-known agencies looking to increase their numbers as well. Next to him, Bakugo grunted. "Will you shut it, Deku? Save your nerd sheet for the losers who came to scout us." When they arrived at the training grounds, Izuku and the other teachers were already there. Behind them stood rows and rows of stalls with brightly colored canopies, each with a different agency manning the booths. Class 1B arrived shortly after, and Izuku addressed the group. "Remember, this will be the first impression you'll leave with many of these agencies, so make sure it's a good one," the teacher lectured. With that he stepped aside, allowing the students to rush off to different booths. "Obviously, my brother Tensei's agency is the best of all, boasting the perfect mix of powerful, courageous and humble heroes with incredible quirks and the strongest sense of justice." Aide informed Uraraka and Azui, making wild chopping motions with his arms as he did. Kirishima and Tetsu marveled as Fat Gum recounted his latest heroic feat, praising the efforts of his work-study student Amajiki who had aided him. Yaoyorozu and Ashido spoke with MT Lady about the raging sexism involved in hero work, the two girls quickly rallying Hagakure and Jiru to join them in the discussion. Todoroki was adamantly avoiding his father's agency, joining Kaminari and Bakugo over at the Best Jeanist booth. Ojiro was keeping Midoriya company as the two walked around, the greenette fascinated with every hero he saw. "It's amazing that so many heroes wanted to take part in this event. I would have expected most to be too busy." "We're never too busy to meet with the heroes of tomorrow, kid." A voice interrupted Midoriya's ramblings. The boy looked up to see none other than the hero Hawks smiling down at him. Midoriya's cheeks pinked. "It's such an honor to meet you, Hawks. I'm a really big fan." "Glad to hear it. You're Midoriya, right?" Ojiro was not a fan of how Midoriya practically swooned. "Why, you know my name?" The man just smiled, his brilliant crimson wings fluttering slightly. "Course I do. Every one of us got a packet of files on the students we'd be meeting today, and yours stood out. It's rare to meet someone with a healing quirk, especially one that doesn't harm the user or the target." Ojiro was beginning to seriously dislike how easily this smug hero managed to make Midoriya blush, and out of the corner of his eye, he could see others noticing it as well. "Why yeah, Recovery Girl did tell me it was kind of odd," Izuku muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "Don't be modest, kid. You've got a great power for hero work, but I gotta say, it wasn't the only thing that stood out in your file." "Oh, what else stood out?" "That pretty little face, obviously. Seriously, someone with your looks and powers would be great PR for a hero agency. I mean a cute guy who gives kisses that heal injuries? And you've even got a cute hero name. Pucker up for a kissing hero? You couldn't ask for better publicity." Midoriya's face was bright red now, the winged hero chuckling at the image. "No need to be so bashful, just pointing out the obvious. Anyway, I'm not one to mince words, so if you're interested in interning with my agency, we'll do lunch and talk it over." By now most of Class 1A and the other heroes had noticed what was happening, moving closer to the hero and the two students. Hawks made to hand Midoriya his business card, when it promptly combusted, turning to ash in the hero's hand. "You aren't the only one interested in having Midoriya join their agency," the number 2 hero, Endeavor, said lowly. The fiery man turned to Midoriya who, no longer blushing, was fighting to keep a polite expression on his face when looking at the man who had ruined his friend's childhood. "I've heard a lot about you, both from the faculty here at UA and from Shoto as well." To his credit, Todoroki didn't blush at his father's words, but it was a near thing. I've never told you anything about Midoriya. No, but you've told your sister and I could hear from the hallway, Endeavor said bluntly. He turned back to Midoriya. Yours is a powerful quirk, Midoriya. It would serve better at my agency. Too bad, old man, Hawks said, throwing an arm around the healer's shoulders. But Midoriya here is looking to the future of hero work, not the soon-to-be past. Class 1A glared hotly at the man's arm, while Midoriya simply blushed again. Before Endeavor could reply, Ingenium marched forward. If Midoriya is going to intern with anyone, it should be with Aide 10. We take on plenty of promising heroes, and he's already close friends with my little brother. Friends, is it? Endeavor turned his attention back to the greenette. Tell me something, Midoriya, have you ever heard of quirk marriages? Shoto will be in need of one when he graduates. What? Quirk marriages? Father, for once you're making perfect sense. I see hot UBS study. It would be the perfect way to ensure your future at my agency, Endeavor continued, ignoring the commotion behind him. My son is quite the catch, you would be very happy. Oh dear, Midoriya muttered, his face aflame. It wasn't long before the other heroes joined the fray, each fighting to talk to Midoriya about his quirk and to offer him an internship. From the sides, Class 1A watched the spectacle, dumbfounded. All this time, we fought for Midoriya's favor, and now the very same person threatens to take every hero opportunity away from us. Ida exclaimed, his face twisted in horror. It certainly is making it harder to sell ourselves when they're being so biased towards him, Azui commented, eyes trained on the wild pussycats as they tried to pull Midoriya away from Hawks. Come on guys, it's not his fault. Besides, they're totally right. Meeting someone with a strong healing quirk is like winning the lotto, Uraraka added. And it's not like Midoriya can do 15 internships at once, so there'll be plenty left for us. The looks the brunette got from her class said they believed otherwise. Eventually, Midoriya managed to escape, holding his hands up as he backed away. Honestly guys, this is super flattering, but I don't know if I even want to do another internship right now. I mean, I just finished one with Recovery Girl a little while ago. And besides, how could I choose? Perhaps, a voice drawled, drawing everyone's attention to a tall, lanky man with glasses. We should showcase to all of these future heroes why they should pick our agencies. Not a bad idea, Sir Night-Eye, Ryukyu commented, adjusting her dragon claw mask. Izuku merely gaped at the man, before rushing forward. Oh my god, you're Sir Night. You were All Might's sidekick for years before going pro. That means you probably know as much about All Might as I do. Well, I guess we know who Midoriya's gonna end up picking, Kirishima muttered to Jairu, who snorted. Eventually, the heroes decided on a short demonstration of their quirks for the students, both classes 1A and 1B gathering around a clear section of the training grounds to watch the adults. First up was Endeavor. As the number 2 hero in all of Japan, both my agency and myself outrank everyone else here. The man activated his quirk, flames lighting up his face and arms. My quirk is Hellfire, a brightly burning inferno that overwhelms evildoers and lights the way for heroes everywhere. Is it just me, or is Todoroki's dad kind of hot? Ashido whispered to Uraraka, who blushed hotly. She'd been thinking the same thing. Up next was Ryukyu, showing off her dragon form, then Fat Gum letting the hero teacher snipe shoot him to showcase his shock absorption. Dude, Fat Gum is so manly. Kirishima exclaimed, Tetsu nodding in agreement. Next was Ingenium, showing off his speed with a big smile. Ida cheered the loudest for his brother, while Hagakure gushed to Yaoyorozu and Kendo about how cute the hero was. Best Jeanist created an intricate web with his fibers that had Aoyama cooing and Monoma applauding. Sir Night-Eye's performance was more muted, but by no means less impressive as he predicted Mirio's, his work-study student and assistant for the day, future. Emilady simply grew in size then shrank back down, sauntering back over to her booth with very little enthusiasm. Despite this, both Kaminari and Siro applauded the woman, their cheeks red and eyes shining. Finally, Hawks came forward. Bakugo and Todoroki glared as the man flapped his wings and became airborne, a cluster of his feathers detaching and moving to pull Midoriya closer. The hero then wrapped an arm around Midoriya's waist and took off, the two soaring around the training grounds. When they landed, Hawks placed Midoriya down gently, before handing him his agency card. Midoriya moved back over to his friends as the presentation ended, a dreamy sigh escaping his lips. Hubba hubba, Midoriya. Ashido teased, her grin lecherous. Pretty bold of you, going after an older man like that. Midoriya's cheeks reddened as he violently shook his head. What? And no, it's not like that. The boy looked to the ground, a shy smile on his face. Although he's not that much older than us, and the age gap wouldn't matter once I graduated. Bakugo seethed at the freckled boy's reaction as Todoroki went to look for his father, wanting to discuss the arranged marriage to Midoriya a little further. After the scouting fair, Class 1A had a great many offers, though only Todoroki and Yaoyorozu received as many as Midoriya. Remember, these offers won't mean a thing if you can't get your provisional licenses, Aizawa reminded them dryly, before beginning the day's lecture. Once classes ended, the group returned to the 1A dorms, where a sleek black car was waiting outside. On behalf of the hero best jeanist, I'm here to collect the Mrs. Midoriya and Bakugo, the well-dressed chauffeur said, bowing slightly. The two boys looked at each other, before handing their backpacks off to Kirishima and Ida respectively before climbing into the vehicle. What do you think that's all about? Siro asked Shoji, who shrugged. When the two returned a few hours later, the class of 1A had to hold in their laughter at the sight of their friends. Midoriya was wearing a tight pair of black jeans that hugged his hips and thighs, a soft-looking green sweater that complemented his eyes, and several pink barrettes clipped expertly into his styled green curls. Bakugo was dressed similarly in tight jeans, a polo shirt, and his hair had been combed, gelled and sprayed into a smooth, flat style. The hot head looked furious. That blue jean BSTRD played dress-up with us and then pointed out all our character flaws. The blonde growled, his eyes blazing. Then he said that we needed to be his interns so we could learn some manners. That's what he said about you, Kachin, Izuku interrupted, fixing his barrettes. Although, he did tell me I lacked good fashion sense. That's because you do, sweetie, Uraraka said, not unkindly as she internally cooed at the Greenette's makeover. I'm taking this sheet off, Bakugo snarled, the others giving him a wide berth as he stomped towards the stairs. Midoriya just giggled, doing a spin at the girl's request. The next invitation came for Yaoyorozu, Uraraka and Azui from Ryukyu, who had taken a liking to them. After that, Fat Gum had Kirishima pay him a visit. It's nice to see so many of our friends getting scouted, Midoriya commented as he and Ojiro worked on a project for English. It just shows how amazing our class is. Midoriya was invited along with Ida to visit his family's agency, the two returning to the dorms hours later with matching grins. Your brother is so cool, Tenya. I told you. Ida beamed. Tenya? Kirishima asked enviously. Well, it was getting confusing calling both Tensei and Tenya by their last name, so they let me use their first names instead. Midoriya gave the class rep one final hug before heading off to bed, the bespectacled boy giving the others a rare smirk. Normally, I'd prefer to keep good manners and decorum, but in this instance I'll indulge just the once, SCK it, losers. The next invitation came for both Midoriya and Todoroki, Endeavor summoning them to his agency's headquarters. When they returned, Midoriya's face was bright red as he rushed to his room. My father told him again what a great catch I am, the dual-toned boy said proudly. He's hoping for a spring wedding for us when we graduate. He's already set my great-grandmother's ring aside for it. Forgive me, but isn't the point of a quirk marriage to ensure a child with an exceptionally strong quirk, Yaoyorozu said carefully. Which means being able to make a baby. Which you two can't, Jiro added dryly. We won't know unless we try. I'll kill you, Icy Hot. When Hawks invited Midoriya to talk, the others couldn't believe the man's impertinence. The hero showed up at the dorms on a Saturday morning, dressed in his usual uniform and grinning smugly. At the sleepy teens. Midoriya, come meet me outside in 5. Midoriya, who was blushing at the hero seeing him in his all-might pajamas, nodded quickly before racing upstairs to change. He came back down in the outfit Best Jeanist had given him, smiling brightly at his classmates before hurrying to the door. The rest of Class 1A gathered around the window, glaring as Hawks lifted Midoriya and took flight, the two flying off into the distance. Their moods only worsened as Midoriya missed lunch, then afternoon training, then dinner, coming back to the dorms well after dark. The boy was grinning from ear to ear, his cheeks red and his hands clutching a white box. What the F is that? Bakugo asked lowly. Nothing, Midoriya said nervously before making a break for the stairs. He wasn't fast enough, as Bakugo caught him around the middle and carried him over to the couch. He set the squirming boy in his lap, holding him tightly as Todoroki came and took the box from him, Class 1A crowding around to see the contents. You gotta tell us how it went, Midoriya? Ashido prodded while the others watched Todoroki fiddle with the box. It was nice, the healer said shyly. I got to see his agency and the town he works in, all the people there really love him. Then we went to his favorite restaurant and I got to talk with some of his sidekicks, then he flew me back. He tried to shrug nonchalantly, but the others saw through it. The greenette had enjoyed himself immensely, much to their displeasure. Todoroki opened the box, glaring at the contents. Midoriya, why is Hawks giving you lip scrubs and lip oils? All eyes turned incredulously to the freckled boy, Bakugo's grip tightening as Midoriya blushed. It's not like that. It's for my quirk. I like to keep my lips soft since I have to kiss so many people. I'm going to cook that big chicken, Todoroki said darkly, his fire side smoking ominously. Leave us, Bakugo growled, hands firing off small explosions to emphasize his words. After the others left, Midoriya wiggled some more. Let me go, Kacchan. Not until you promise to never intern with that a-hole. Why should I? Because you don't belong to him, Todoroki said as he re-entered, holding the box. Stay out of this, Icy Hot. You're both being crazy, Midoriya complained, before getting an idea. He whipped around and planted a kiss on Bakugo, watching proudly as the hot head was knocked out. He got up and slowly approached Todoroki, who opened his arms wide. Do it. It's good practice for the wedding. When Bakugo and Todoroki woke up the next day, sore from sleeping slumped over the common room couch, Midoriya grinned victoriously from his spot at the kitchen counter. In the end, once the students were allowed to do their internships, Midoriya chose Sir Naitai's agency. Class 1A was deeply relieved, until they realized he'd be spending a lot of that time alone with Mirio. Bonus. Back at Hawk's agency, the man groaned as Aizawa's capture weapon slammed him into a wall, the man's stare keeping his feathers from attacking. I had hoped to stay out of this mess altogether, but you forced my hand, the teacher said ominously. He pulled the hero closer, his glowing eyes giving the unnerved man a piercing look. Problem child though he may be, Midoriya's like a son to me, and you'll keep your greasy hands off him from now on, understand? Hawks groaned as Aizawa slammed him into the wall once again. Got it. If there was one thing that Class 1A had learned since entering the hero course, it was that competition was not always healthy. They had been excited when their teacher told them they'd be having a joint training class with the 1B students, most of 1A looking forward to the exercise. Man, we haven't gotten to go head-to-head with those guys since the sports festival, Kirishima remarked, students like Sato and Ashido nodding in agreement. With the exception of Minoma, Class 1B was fairly easy to get along with, Kirishima and Tetsutetsu having a strong friendship, as well as Yaoyorozu and Kendo. Most of the other 1A and 1B students liked each other well enough, and perhaps could one day become good friends, given a long enough acquaintance. Aizawa sighed. Glad King and I decided this would be the best way to test how much you've all grown this semester, while making things more entertaining than just regular training. This is gonna be so much fun. Hagakure enthused. Aizawa merely rolled his eyes. Put on your costumes and meet back at Training Ground Gamma in 15 minutes. Don't be late. When the students reconvened, Midoriya smiled brightly at the 1B students. Oh wow, your guys' costumes look great. Before the others could stop him, the greenette was standing with the other class, marveling at their different hero attires. 1B proudly flaunted their costumes, preening at the attention given to them as 1A watched with no small amount of envy. Stupid Deku fawning over those dumb extras, Bakugo muttered, his hands smoking slightly. Uraraka rolled her eyes. Leave him be, Bakugo. You know how much Aiza likes hero stuff, he's just being analytical. The girl promptly ate her words as the healer squeezed Tetsutetsu's metal bicep, giggling as his fingers slipped off the appendage. You were saying? Jairu snarked, her eyes narrowing. All right, listen up. Vlad called out, commanding the attention of the two classes. Today, you'll be going against each other in a game of last man standing. Each class will work as a team to take down the other. You'll be using these special cuffs to capture your enemies. Whichever class has the last student standing will be deemed the winners. Ida raised his hand. And what if there's more than one person left from the same team? Aizawa gave him a sadistic smile. If that's the case, then the remaining classmates will have to battle each other. Midoriya flitted over to the teachers, likely to ask several long-winded questions about the specifics of the game, and Monoma took his absence as an opportunity to sidle up to one, a smarmy look on his face. It's obvious Class B will be triumphant in this exercise, he gloated, leaning into Bakugo's personal space. We're clearly the better class, and we'll prove it by besting you. Bakugo's nostrils flared. What the F are you talking about? Last I checked, most of your shitty class didn't even make it to the finals in the sports festival. And none of you managed to place in the finals, Tokoyami added, Dark Shadow nodding along beside him. So, you think yourselves to be today's winner? Then shall we make this game a little more interesting? Bakugo narrowed his eyes, but said nothing, and Monoma continued. Whoever manages to be the last man standing will earn the right to ask Midoriya out. Todoroki caught fire, and Bakugo screamed. Just what kind of bullshit are you trying to pull, huh? Maybe we should participate, Yaoyorozu piped up, the rest of her class turning to look at the girl incredulously. It's clear we all like Izuku, but no one's done anything about it yet. Maybe this will be the push we all need. That's really sweet, Yamamo, Kendo praised, before her eyes turned steely. I'll remember that when Midoriya and I are on our date this Saturday. There's a new cat cafe in the city I'm sure he'll love. I'll buy him all the cats he could ever want, Todoroki promised, his expression dark. And all the cafes too. Is his dad really that rich? Uraraka muttered to Azui, who shrugged. Bakugo's furious expression morphed into something wicked, a sharp smile on his face. All right, you shitty extras, if it's a fight you want, it's a fight you'll get. Immediately, both classes began sizing one another up. The stakes were high enough before, but now they'd reached a new peak. A date with Midoriya could lead to dating Midoriya, which could very well put an end to the school-wide pining over the oblivious healer. We're ready to begin, Vlad called out, having finally disengaged from Midoriya's endless questions. Everyone, get to your places. I think I have a pretty good strategy to win, guys, Midoriya began, but was ignored as his teammates began breaking into smaller groups, talking amongst themselves. He eventually found his way into a group with Ida, Uraraka, and Todoroki, the other three muttering about something. Did you say something about a date? He asked curiously, and Ida immediately turned red. Oh, of course not, Midoriya. The flustered class rep managed to say, chopping the air. I was merely strategizing on how we'll win. Midoriya brightened. Oh, I actually came up with a really good dash. A loud buzzer cut him off, signaling the beginning of the game. The other groups immediately scattered, each heading in a different direction. Midoriya stuck close to his teammates, doing his best to keep up. Todoroki caught him as he tripped, wrapping his arms around the greenette's waist. I'll never let you fall, he said seriously, leaning in. Midoriya looked up at him in confusion. Thanks. Guys, hurry it up. Uraraka snapped. She had her competitive face on, her eyes glinting dangerously. We've got to win this. Crap, they ambushed us. Kaminari dove for cover as Rin, Bondo, Kamakiri and Kaibara unleashed a barrage of attacks on his teammates, Ashido, Jairu and Sato bracing themselves against the hits. Kaminari, you total coward. Ashido cried out, struggling as Bondo glued them all into place. The 1B group quickly apprehended Jairu and Sato, Ashido freeing herself with her acid and fleeing before they could grab her. Kaminari seized his opportunity, unleashing his lightning and incapacitating the 1B students. Despite the loss, Jiru snickered at Kaminari's dumbstruck face, the blonde wandering off in a stupor. She may not get to win, but at least the short-circuiting moron wouldn't, either. Kendo supposed she shouldn't have provoked Yaoyorozu before the game began, but she'd wanted to get under the other girl's skin, as she was easily the biggest threat from Class A. Her plan worked a little too well, as now Yaoyorozu was firing a cannon at Kendo and her teammates, a competitive glint in the tall girl's eye. "We need a plan," Kendo muttered, Fukudashi, Tsuburaba and Hananuki nodding in agreement. They were startled out of their strategizing as they felt something snap onto their wrists. "I got him!" Hagakure cried out, her invisible form hurrying over to where Shoji was holding her costume. "They didn't even notice me." "You did well, Hagakure," Yaoyorozu praised, before sobering. "Now, let's go find the rest of 1B. Bakugo sneered as he used his explosions to take down more of the 1B losers, before flying off to find more. "They call this a challenge?" he muttered to himself, before blasting through a building and knocking it down. He remembered what Aizawa said: he'd be going up against his own class once 1B was defeated, and he wouldn't be taking any chances. He spotted Kaminari ambling around, his brain clearly fried. Bakugo pulled out one of the cuffs he'd been given, swooping down and deftly cuffing the other blonde. He couldn't continue anyways, and he'd be in the way if Bakugo really needed to let loose with his quirk. "Turning on us already? Not cool, Bakugo!" Ashido cried out, springing from her hiding place, flinging acid at the hot head. Bakugo dodged it easily, firing off a few explosions that had the pink-skinned girls scampering away. The blonde gave chase, catching up and capturing the girl after another short fight. She'd done well, Bakugo thought as he cuffed her, noting it took more effort on his part to best her than it had anyone else thus far. He considered complimenting her, but scoffed instead. "Nice try, Pinky, but Deku's mine." Todoroki turned as Kirishima and Ojiro called out to him, the two joining their group. "Man, I'm glad we found you guys," Kirishima told them. "We got ambushed by Yanagi and Tsunatori, and they managed to take down Tokoyami and Koda." Todoroki made to reply, but stopped as he looked around. "Wait, where's Midoriya?" "Oh no, he was just here," Uraraka cried, frantically looking around. "Oh man, that's not good," Kirishima muttered. "We better stick together, at least until we beat 1B. The implication of what would come after hung heavy in the air. The group managed to stick together, but their numbers dwindled as more 1B students picked them off, the other class using guerrilla tactics to take down their opponents one by one. Once he had a clear shot, Todoroki unleashed his ice, freezing both friend and foe alike in place. At Ida's betrayed expression, he shrugged. "Midoriya and I are going to get married one day," he explained to the class rep, securing a cuff onto his wrist. So his first date should naturally be with his future husband. "Why, you're no hero," Ida muttered, his teeth chattering. "Only a villain would resort to such dirty tactics." Todoroki shrugged. "I'll let you be best man at the wedding." Aizawa watched with no small amount of amusement as the captured students filed into the viewing area, looking far more disappointed than the hero thought they should. "It's only a training exercise," he muttered to Vlad. "What could they possibly be so upset about?" Vlad grunted but didn't comment. The two continued to watch the screen, something catching their eye. "Wait a minute," Vlad started, tracking the figure swiftly taking out the competition. "Is that Dash?" "It is," Aizawa confirmed, attempting to conceal the surprise on his face. "Huh, I didn't know he had it in him." It had come down to the final four: Tokage, Bakugo, Todoroki and Minoma. Minoma had borrowed several quirks, firing off scales and horns and mushrooms as Tokage's severed body parts went after the 1A boys. "You'll never best me, 1A." Minoma cried out, a crazed look in his eye. "I'll show you 1B is the superior class, and I the superior choice for Midoriya's heart." Bakugo blasted all of the incoming projectiles as Todoroki froze Minoma and most of Tokage in place, moving to cuff them. He'd just released the bested students from his ice when one of Bakugo's explosions slammed into him, sending him flying. Todoroki recovered in midair, righting himself and using his ice to slide back to the ground. Heterochromatic eyes narrowed as he took in his enemy. Let this be our ultimate battle, Bakugo. Shut the hell up and fight me, icy hot. Todoroki unleashed a burst of fire as Bakugo fired off a giant explosion, the two attacks colliding and creating a cloud of smoke, dust and debris. The blonde thought he'd heard something coming from the opposite side of the clearing, and readied himself for another attack. When the air cleared, Bakugo looked on in triumph as he spotted Todoroki's unconscious form, the other boy lying face down in the dirt. I win. Huh. Take that, shitty extras. Should have listened to me before, huh? Now, I've beat you all in more ways than one. Bakugo ceased his gloating immediately, freezing as he felt someone tapping his shoulder. He whirled around just in time to see Midoriya leaning in, their lips meeting before Bakugo's world turned black. When he woke a few minutes later, Bakugo realized someone must have carried he and Todoroki off of the training grounds, likely Shoji or Sato. They were in the viewing area, the other students gathered in clumps as they commiserated over their loss. Bakugo spotted a familiar mop of green curls as Midoriya gave healing kisses to the other students, their faces red and their expressions dreamy. He snapped. But what the hell was that to you? Oh, sorry Kachin. The greenette said sheepishly. You turned a little more than I thought you would, that's why I ended up kissing you on the lips. Not that, the blonde huffed, taking a great deal of satisfaction in the envious looks he got from the others. I mean the fight. Where the hell did you come from? Oh that, Midoriya giggled. It was all part of my strategy. I figured Class B would resort to ambushes and guerrilla warfare, so to compensate I figured we should have our strongest fighters take out the groups while the stealthier fighters took out the single students and the pairs. I was going to tell everybody, but no one would listen. He pouted, before brightening. Anyways, turns out I didn't have to, as you guys started doing it all on your own. So, I snuck away from my group and started picking off the stragglers from 1B, then I went after my own classmates. Everyone was so focused, no one saw me coming. Then, when you and Todoroki were fighting, I snuck up on both of you before the dust settled, and that's how I won. He gave the other boy a triumphant grin as the other students looked at him in shock. All this time, it was sweet Midoriya we had to watch out for, Aide muttered, slumping down next to an equally defeated Uraraka. We let our adoration blind us. Bakugo scoffed, casting his eyes to his lap so the healer wouldn't see the disappointment in them. As if he'd care about some dumb cat cafe anyways. He heard Midoriya gasp, and Bakugo winced as he realized he'd said that out loud. There's a cat cafe nearby? Bakugo looked up, smugly enjoying the incredulous looks the others were shooting their way. Yeah? One just opened up in the city. Midoriya beamed as he grabbed Bakugo's hand. Can we go? Please, Kachin? You know how much I like animals and I'll even pay. Calm down, Deku. Bakugo snapped, though there was no heat behind it. We'll go this Saturday and I'll be paying. Midoriya was talking a mile a minute, wondering about the cats and the beverages as Bakugo sneered at the others. He'd lost the training battle, but he won the prize anyways. At the cat cafe, Midoriya cooed as a cream-colored cat rubbed against his leg, purring gently. Bakugo was less enthused with the gray, squashed-faced cat that had taken up residence in his lap, yowling loudly every time the hothead tried to remove him. He kind of looks like you, Kachin, Midoriya giggled, noting how the blonde's grumpy face mirrored the cat in his lap. Bakugo scowled but didn't yell, not wanting to spook the animals. Midoriya was one of 4 people who'd been allowed to see his softer side, the other 3 being his parents and Kirishima. He watched as Midoriya cuddled with the cream-colored cat, a pleased flush on his cheeks. The mood was ruined, however, as the blonde heard a few "us" coming from just outside. Both Class 1A and 1B had decided to follow the two, watching Bakugo intensely for any signs of foul play. They'd reasoned that, since he hadn't won the battle, he couldn't consider his outing with Midoriya a date, and thus the school-wide competition for the healer's heart was still on. If nothing else, the hothead could smirk over the others' inability to get in, their group too large for the cafe's low capacity. This is so much fun, Kachin. We should do this more often. Bakugo turned back to Midoriya. his expression softening as he took in the greenette's sweet smile. Whatever you want, Deku. Bonus. Aizawa came to a complete stop as he spotted his and Vlad's students mobbing the window of the new cat cafe he'd been planning on visiting, both Midnight and Present Mike accompanying him. Don't tell me, one as homeroom teacher groaned, that Midoriya and Bakugo meant this cafe. Midnight let out a cackle as she peeked inside, spotting green curls and blonde spikes. Looks like it. Ah, to be young and hopelessly in love with a clueless boy again. Aizawa promptly turned heel, walking back in the direction they'd come in. Nope. Not doing it. But Shota, we booked this visit a week out. Present Mike cried. Amplified voice drawing the attention of the students. Don't care, I'll come back another time. Or, maybe not at all. Maybe I'll move to a new country, where there aren't any kissing heroes unintentionally ruining my life. Midnight and Present Mike shared an exasperated look, but traipsed inside without the grumpy man, taking unholy delight in teasing the students sat together. Aizawa decided he could get his own cat and make coffee at home if he wanted to simulate the experience, so long as he never had to deal with Midoriya and his fan club outside of class. As the leaves outside changed colors and the air turned crisp in the autumn months, the class of 1A prepared for the school festival. It was an exciting time for UA, with each class from every department getting to showcase their creativity and talents in some way or another. Class 1A had decided to do a bubble tea stand, the idea introduced by Hagakure and seconded by Ishido and Sato. We can make our own boba and do fun shapes and colors, Sato suggested, and we all know how to make good tea thanks to Yaoyorozu. The tall girl preened. I can make special lids and straws for us to use, that way we won't go over budget on expenses. And so the class of 1A began their preparations, some working on the menu, others helping Sato in the kitchen. Midoriya, who had been attempting to make All Might-themed boba pearls, was called away to the principal's office the day before the festival. The rest of 1A didn't see him until dinner, at which point Azui questioned him. What did the principal want, Ribbit? Oh, Principal Nizu asked me to help Recovery Girl with the infirmary booth. Uraraka turned to him. There's an infirmary booth? Like for first aid? I think so. Recovery Girl told me that last year she just handed out pamphlets on wellness and band-aids, so I guess that's what I'll be doing. But don't worry, I can still work my morning shift at our stand. Little did they know, the devious principal had something far more interesting planned. Bakugo scowled as he took Midoriya's place at 1's stall, the healer having finished his shift and was off to help Recovery Girl. Man, it SCKS that Midoriya's gonna be stuck working the whole festival, Kirishima said, adding boba to a cup before filling it with green tea. The blonde merely grunted, taking the money the girl in front of him handed him and nearly throwing her change at her. She glared at him, which earned her a glare in return, before taking her change and her drink with a huff. Bakubro, you really need to learn how to talk to people. Shut the hell up, shitty hair. Kirishima sighed, before helping the next customer while Bakugo continued to sulk. Kaminari ambled through the festival, taking in the various attractions with muted interest. He wasn't hungry, so there was no need to check out the food stalls, and the rest just seemed boring. Class B was putting on a confusing play, but the blonde didn't have the attention span for it, and so he'd left the rest of the class to venture off on his own. He was about ready to give up on finding something interesting when a familiar mop of green curls caught his eye. Midoriya? Kaminari? The greenette chirped, smiling from behind the booth Nizu and Recovery Girl had set up. How's the festival? See anything fun? Kaminari couldn't speak, couldn't think, not when the sign on Midoriya's booth looked too good to be true, like a cruel prank. Midoriya, is this real? Midoriya nodded, sheepishly rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, apparently Nizu thought it'd be a good way to make money. He says it's to buy more supplies for the infirmary, but I thought the school already had a budget for those things, so maybe there were cuts made to it or something. Kaminari nodded, not having heard anything beyond the confirmation. It was real. It was totally real. He began to back away, his expression dazed. Sorry, I gotta go tell the others. Jaira tried to hide her annoyance as Kaminari all but shoved her, Azui, Ojiro and Shoji passed the stalls and booths of the other students, the blonde having cornered them and was now forcibly guiding them to an unknown location. Kaminari, where are you taking us? Just wait, you have to— Oh my god, you guys, it's Dash. The girl rolled her eyes before freezing, taking in the sight before her. Midoriya was sitting behind the infirmary booth, the freckled boy leaning forward and kissing some students squarely on the mouth. She gasped. It's a kissing booth, Kaminari hissed. Nizu tricked our healer into working a kissing booth, and now the whole school is gonna get a smooch. This Dash, Jiraiya couldn't process what she was seeing. Next to her, Azui fished some money from her pocket before rushing over to the booth. One kiss please, Ribbit. Midoriya beamed at her. Sure thing, Tsu. He leaned forward and gave her a quick peck, careful not to activate his quirk. The girl gave him a pleased grin before walking back to the others, who were eyeing her with a mixture of envy and disbelief. She shrugged. No one's stopping you. Come on, you know if we tried to get him to leave the booth Nizu would punish us, so we might as well enjoy ourselves. You mean take advantage, Jiraiya commented dryly, though she too was eyeing the booth. Real kisses, Kaminari said in a daze. Not just cheek kisses for healing, but real kisses from Midoriya. Kaminari caved, the others joining him less than 10 seconds later. Jiraiya, Shoji and Ojiro felt a little guilty as they accepted their kisses, but Kaminari and Azui were shameless, both going back for a second kiss before departing. The rest of 1A all found their way to the infirmary booth at point or another, Hagakure and Ashido both squealing to one another after their kisses. Koda and Tokoyami were more reserved but by no means less enthusiastic about the kisses they received from the freckled boy. Yaoyorozu ignored the lecture Ida was giving both her and Aoyama, the two stopping by the booth at least twice after their first visit. The class rep had acted affronted up until the others had left, at which point he quickly whipped around and paid for 3 kisses, a light blush on his cheeks as he did. The 1A students weren't the only visitors Midoriya received, however. Once their play had finished, Class 1B surrounded the booth, each getting a kiss with Monoma, Tetsu and an embarrassed Kendo coming back for more. Hatsum had practically skipped over to the booth and slammed a few banknotes onto the table. I wanted to see what all the fuss is about, she chirped. Midoriya wasn't sure what she meant, but shrugged and gave her a kiss. Her yellow eyes lit up. Huh, not bad, but I bet I could make a baby that does it better. Shinso from General Studies had taken one look at the sign on the booth before promptly emptying his pockets, putting all the money he had on the table and spent several minutes getting kissed in return. When Recovery Girl came to check on the boy, she grinned at the long line winding through the festival pathways. It looks like things are going well, she said to the healer, who smiled at her. I know. It's nice to see so many students want to help raise money for the infirmary. She shot the boy a look, wondering how someone so smart could be so dense. Where the F are they? Bakugo growled, once again scaring a customer. Dunce's face and 4 eyes were supposed to be here half an hour ago. Kirishima checked his phone, not seeing any replies from his earlier text. Dunno, do you think something happened to them? Bakugo let out a snort, the hot head violently mixing the customer's drink. If they're not here in the next 5 minutes, I'm blowing something up. The customer squeaked, and Kirishima rolled his eyes. Calm down, man. I'll go look for them. Don't you leave me here, shitty hair. I'll be back in 5 minutes. He called out, already racing off to find the others. Bakugo snarled, his hands smoking as he handed the customer their drink, the cup slightly charred. Kirishima wasn't able to find anyone, but as luck would have it, he did stumble upon the infirmary booth, his face turning as red as his hair as he read the sign. Midababe, is this, are you really Dash? Yeah, most of the others have already stopped by. Kirishima didn't like the sound of that, but wasn't going to let jealousy spoil this golden opportunity for him. He pulled some money from his pocket, his hands sweaty as he handed it over to the healer. Midoriya just smiled, leaning forward and giving the redhead a sweet kiss. Kirishima's arm hardened, and his grip on the table splintered the wood underneath. He'd imagined kissing Midoriya would be manly, but the reality was so much manlier than he ever could have dreamed. But Midoriya was already helping someone else, The big three now surrounding the table with varying amounts of money on hand. Kirishima watched as Amajiki accepted his kiss, then immediately turned to face the wall of a nearby canopy tent, the older boy visibly flustered. Nijire just giggled after receiving her kiss, dragging Amajiki away to find other amusements. Mirio looked to be on cloud nine as he bought kiss after kiss, his usual smile stretched wider than Kirishima had ever seen it before. "Crap, I have to go get the others," he muttered, determined to unseat the upperclassman from his spot in front of the booth. When Todoroki found the booth, he'd immediately walked away, only to return with a small briefcase. "I've been saving up my allowances," he told Midoriya, opening the case, dumping the money onto the table. "I think this should buy me at least 6 weeks' worth of kisses." Uraraka, who had followed the two-toned boy back to the booth, rolled her eyes. "The offer's only good for today, Todoroki." "Midoriya, is this true? I can't buy kisses in advance." Midoriya shook his head, and Todoroki sighed. "I suppose the rest will just have to go towards our future honeymoon." Uraraka swiped a few notes from the pile, handing them to the healer shyly. "2 kisses, please." Todoroki and Uraraka spent the most time getting kisses, having spent a good chunk of Endeavor's money doing so, with Ishido, Kirishima, Ida and Kaminari buying several kisses as well. Shiro and Sato both bought a few kisses but were actually nearby to ward off repeat buyers outside of their class, like Shinso and Mirio. It worked well, until midnight. Present Mike and Cementos were called over to break up a fight between Shinso and Shiro. Midnight took one look at Midoriya and the sign on his booth before bursting into laughter, the woman's cackling filling the air. Cementos looked amused and Present Mike was screaming about not being the one to tell Aizawa. They were warned to not start any more fights, so 1A decided to switch tactics, instead spending as much of Todoroki's allowance as possible to use up what little time was left of the festival. Midoriya simply stared in confusion as Todoroki accepted his kiss, then moved to the back of the line for another. "You guys must be really bored, huh?" he said, kissing Azui for perhaps the 8th or 9th time that day. The class began talking at once, each excuse they gave him more outlandish than the last. From his spot at 1, as Boba stall, Bakugo seethed as he attended to more students, completely forgotten by the rest of his class. He checked the cooler, noting that they were out of tea because those shitty extras hadn't come back with more product. He slammed the cooler shut and stomped off, leaving the booth unattended as he searched for the others with murderous intent. He finally found Kirishima, and was about to punch the spiky-haired idiot for abandoning him, when he noticed what the other boy was doing. He was leaning over the infirmary booth and into Midoriya's personal space, kissing the healer deeply. Bakugo snapped. It had taken several students and adults to pry Bakugo off of Kirishima, the blonde having punched, kicked and exploded every inch of the redhead he could reach. He then rounded on the others, screaming at them for leaving him stuck at their booth all day while they played hooky and kissed Deku over and over. "And you?" he growled at Midoriya, eyes flashing. "Kissed half the DMN school, did you? Well, you can forget about kissing anyone else, 'cause it's my turn now." The blonde slammed a few stacks of bills onto the table, Kirishima's non-swollen eye widening in realization. "That's the money from our booth, isn't it?" "Hey, that's ours." Hagakure pouted. "Mine now, shitty extra. None of you beaths came for your shifts, so I'm claiming it, just like I'm claiming you, Deku." Midoriya looked between the students, his eyes wide and confused. "I don't understand, you guys left Kacchan all alone at our booth? Why would you do that?" We kind of forgot," Yaoyorozu said ashamedly, ignoring the furious look the hothead gave her. "We were distracted, since we all wanted to kiss Dash. Wanted to explore the festival." Ida cut in, shooting the taller girl a warning look. Midoriya frowned. "That's not fair. Kacchan shouldn't have to cover for you guys. Like that." The rest of 1A looked contrite, muttering apologies to the blonde at Midoriya's urging. He shooed them away, telling them they could take down the booth themselves. He turned back to Bakugo. "I'm sorry they did that, Kacchan. The festival's almost over, but there's still time for you to explore if you want." Bakugo gave him a lecherous grin. "I already told you, Deku, I'm spending every last second of this DMN festival right here." He pushed the money over to the greenette, who sighed as he added it to the comically large pile next to him. The tip jar recovery girl had brought him had proven to be a gross underestimation of how much business they'd be getting. Bakugo's grin widened as Midoriya leaned in, the blonde closing the distance between them. Aizawa had come to find Midoriya at Midnight's urging, the woman giving him a knowing smirk before sending him off in the direction of the infirmary booth. He spotted the booth, getting closer before freezing at the sight. Midoriya's face was bright red as Bakugo kissed him, the healer accidentally activating his quirk as Bakugo prodded his lip with his tongue. The hot head hit the ground with a thud, and Aizawa let out a sigh. He eyed the pile of money next to the greenette, simply saying, "I'm getting half of that," before walking away. He'd buy himself a drink later, and forget the whole thing ever happened. And if he assigned extra homework the following week to his negligent, kiss-hungry students, no one needed to know. Bonus. After the festival had ended, Eri had come to the 1A dorms for dinner, hearing all about Midoriya's time at the infirmary booth. "That sounds like a lot of work." Midoriya nodded. "It was, but I made a lot of money for the infirmary, so it was for a good cause." "Oh, I wish I had gotten a kiss." The healer gave her a bright smile, before kissing her cheek. "Now you have a good night kiss for later." Eri smiled back, returning to her dinner. Todoroki stood. "Midoriya, I too am in need of a good night kiss." "Go to hell, icy hot." "But I won't be able to sleep without one." Soon everyone was asking for a good night kiss, causing Eri to tilt her head in confusion. "Big kids are weird," she muttered to herself, watching Bakugo launch himself at Todoroki from across the table. "Good, everyone's here," Nizu chirped, smiling brightly at the rest of the faculty. "Shall we begin?" The teachers were gathered inside UA's largest faculty room for their weekly meeting, one that hadn't been held in recent weeks due to the holidays. Aizawa had not lamented the loss of these meetings in the slightest, and had spent every day of his short vacation blissfully in the company of his adopted daughter and far removed from Principal Nizu's schemes. A vacation that seemed to be over, if the smile on the small creature's face was any indication. "As I'm sure you're all well aware, the hero billboard charts begin next week," the principal continued, eyes flicking between the other members of faculty, "and the Hero Commission has asked that the work-study students accompany their mentors to the post-ceremony dinner this year, as a show of support for these blossoming young heroes." "Meaning they're looking for some good press?" Aizawa cut in drilly. "Perhaps. In any case, I think it a good idea to let them go. We'll have to send some chaperones, of course, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem, as I know some of you were planning on attending the billboard events anyways." Nizu looked to All Might, Present Mike and Midnight as he said this, giving the three a measuring look. "Although, perhaps a few extra chaperones would be beneficial, we have quite a few work-study students, after all." "But we can discuss the particulars later," the principal pressed forward, ignoring the hurt looks the implication of incompetence he had made created. "We have another order of business to cover, the teacher evaluations." There were a few groans that could be heard around the table, but Nizu paid them no mind. "Come now, there's no need to be concerned. The reviews have all been positive, and in fact one student gave glowing evaluations to each and every one of you." "Three guesses who that was," Snipe muttered to Present Mike, who chuckled. "Of course young Midoriya would be impressed with my educational prowess," All Might crowed. "I was able to catch him up to his fellow classmates in record time when he first transferred to Class A." "I helped him too," Midnight reminded him, "and I taught him far more about heroics than you did, Mr. Punch to the Kidney." "By teaching him how to shamelessly flirt with his opponents?" Aizawa groused, arching his brow at the woman. "There's nothing wrong with a little flirting, Shota. There is when half the school flies into a jealous age because of it." "I think it's closer to 2/3 now," Power Loader cut in. "The support students have started making gear for Midoriya, everything from new costumes to weapons to face guards." Snipe perked up at that. "Face guards? To keep others from kissing Midoriya, I'd imagine," Nizu speculated, the small principal looking far too amused at the conversation for Aizawa's liking. But Midnight, All Might and Present Mike were no longer listening, now in a heated argument over which of them Midoriya liked best. "I'm his favorite." All Might insisted. Not just his favorite teacher, but his favorite hero. He has all of my merch. He has all of everyone's merch, Izawa muttered, the boy's collection so large it had spread from his room in the dorms to the common room as well, due to both the healer's own avid collecting as well as the gifts bestowed upon him by his fellow classmates. Any gift given to the boy from someone outside of class somehow always found its way to the trash cans outside. Soon the other teachers were joining in the argument, each with their own reasons as to why they were clearly Midoriya's favorite that became more and more outlandish as the conversation continued. I make him katsudon for lunch every day. Lunch Rush gloated, and I only make it for him. That seems unfair to the other children, Snipe commented. And besides, it doesn't compare to my teaching Midoriya to shoot. Aizawa's head snapped over to the other man. You what? Just a pellet gun, Shota, relax. How many other students have you been arming? Just the older ones, mostly. Who needs guns when you have a lure? Midnight cut in, brandishing her whip and nearly hitting Present Mike in the small space afforded to her. I've taught Midoriya to use his quirk to its fullest potential, making his kisses the most powerful in all of Japan. The fighting only continued to devolve further, and Aizawa noted with irritation that Nizu practically seemed to feed off of the chaos. I suppose we'll find out once and for all who Midoriya favors most at the billboard dinner, the fuzzy principal commented lightly, when we see who he comes dressed as. All heads immediately turned to him. The fighting momentarily ceased. What do you mean, Nizu? Oh dear, did I forget to mention the dinner this year is in part a costume party? Aizawa's eyes narrowed. You know you did. Oh well, now you know. And I'm sure we can all agree that whichever hero our dear Midoriya chooses to come dressed as will obviously be the boy's favorite. A little competition of sorts, if you will. This caused the earlier chaos to erupt once more, the principal smiling deviously as it did. Aizawa let out a weary sigh, Recovery Girl patting his shoulders sympathetically. Hey there dear, just another week of this and it will be over, Aizawa had too much respect for the older woman to snap at her for being so naive. We both know it will never be over, Chio. On Aizawa's other side, Cementos nodded. It seems even the faculty is not immune to the Midoriya madness, despite how pointless and juvenile this fighting is. Aizawa shot the man a grateful look, which he immediately regretted as Cementos continued. After all, it's perfectly obvious Midoriya likes me best. He always offers to read in class, and he's never fallen asleep during my lectures, not even once. Aizawa let out another sigh. Present Mike was certain that Midoriya favored his teaching and heroics above the rest of his colleagues, and would put money on the likelihood of the greenette sporting a leather jacket and blonde do at the billboard dinner. However, he figured it couldn't hurt to curry even more favor from the boy in the days before the event, and had an idea in mind to do so. All right, little listeners, who's ready to learn some English? The hero's question was met with little fanfare, though he didn't take it to heart. Today we'll be tackling a classic, Romeo and Juliet. A tale of love and tragedy written by William Shakespeare, a man whom many believe to be one of the most prolific writers of all time. Never heard of him, Kaminari muttered to Kirishima, who nodded in agreement. His work has nothing on the dark bounty written by Poe, Tokoyami declared, though it didn't appear that his classmates knew that name either. We'll decide on the parts each of you will read, then dive right in. Any volunteers? Todoroki's hand was up in an instant. I'll read as Romeo if Midoriya will be my Juliet. Like hell you will, Icy Hot. Actually, I was thinking Midoriya could be our leading man, Present Mike suggested. Todoroki was undeterred. Then I will be his Juliet. Bakugo looked to be close to exploding, and Uraraka, Ashido and Hagakure were holding back giggles at the dual-toned boy's theatrics. Midoriya shifted in his seat as Present Mike looked to him expectantly. I don't know, sir, my English isn't nearly as good as Todoroki's. Todoroki preened at that, but Present Mike was insistent. All the more reason to practice. Okay then I'll do it. Perfect. And would you like to choose your Juliet? All eyes snapped to the freckled boy, who contemplated it. I think I'd like Hagakure to play her. And me? The invisible squeaked out, thankful none of her envious classmates could see the pleased blush on her cheeks. "Well, yeah, you always do a great job whenever we have to read aloud, and I know how much you like theater. Unless you'd rather not be Juliet. I understand if you don't want to play my love interest dash. I'll do it." She cried out a little louder than necessary as she hurriedly opened her book. The rest of the parts were selected much more diplomatically, though Bakugo insisted on playing Friar Lawrence. "He gets to kill Juliet, right?" he asked darkly, Hagakure shooting the blonde a nervous look. In the end, the class was only able to read through the first 10 minutes of the play, as they had exhausted the rest of the hour picking parts and arguing. As they filed out for the day, Midoriya stopped to speak to present Mike. "Thank you for choosing me to read as Romeo. It might be tough for me, but I'm sure I'll learn a lot." "That's what teachers are for, Midoriya," present Mike told him, grinning proudly. "I'm more than happy to help you reach your full potential." Midoriya gave him a bright smile, and present Mike was sure that he'd cemented his place as the boys' favorite teacher. The rest of UA's faculty wasn't much better, each one vying for the healer's favor by various means. Midnight wrote glowing comments in the margins of Midoriya's papers, praising him for his superior knowledge of art history. Hound Dog would call the boy in for frequent therapy sessions, as well as asking his opinion on ways to merge the physical and mental aspects of caring for the hero students. Ectoplasm gave generous extra credit assignments to keep Midoriya's math grade high, which benefited the other students who struggled a bit more with the subject as well, and Cementos stopped assigning homework together for the week. Aizawa changed nothing in his curriculum and fervently ignored his colleagues' attempts at bribing his student. It had become obvious to the point that the rest of Class A had taken notice, though Midoriya seemed entirely unaware of the new special treatment. "What do you think's gotten into the teachers?" Kirishima asked as the class made their way to ground beta. "They've all, fixated on Midababe." Ashido let out an enlightened sound. "Ooh, maybe they've all got the Midoriya madness, too." "It is catching," Ida muttered, making sure the boy in question was too far ahead of them to hear. Bakugo rolled his eyes. "They're a bunch of adults and he's 16, get your heads right." "Geez, we didn't mean anything gross by it," Ashido defended, putting her hands up. "But you've gotta admit something weird is going on." Bakugo grunted, but didn't comment. As they reached the training grounds they were greeted by All Might, his smile bright and his stature imposing. "Students, it is time to begin our training for the day." He pointed to a rather large ring drawn in chalk not far away. "Today you'll be pairing up and sparring. The objective is simple, make your opponent yield, or force them from the ring." His smile turned devious. "For the first match I'll be giving a demonstration. Midoriya, care to do the honors?" The rest of the class stared at the hero in shock and horror. "No way!" Kaminari protested. "There's no way you can spar with Midoriya, you'll kill him." "Nonsense, it's only a training match. Remember when you almost broke Bakugo's spine during the end-of-term exams?" Jiraiya reminded him, shooting the hero a flinty look. Todoroki stepped forward. "If Midoriya needs a partner dash, he needs one that's not a weak extra like you, icy hot." Bakugo growled. "Screw what All Might says, you're training with me, Deku." Midoriya let out a shaky laugh. "I'll be alright guys, I promise." The two entered the ring, Midoriya eyeing the teacher warily. "I'll only use about 10% of my full power, young Midoriya, to make it a fairer fight." Perhaps it was the lack of power the towering hero used, or perhaps even a gross underestimation of his student, but when the match began and All Might shot forward and to the left, as he always did in a fight, Midoriya ducked out of the way, recovering with just enough time to land a quick kiss to the back of his teacher's hand. And though he held the greatest power Japan had seen in decades, All Might proved no match for Pucker-Up's sedative, and the blonde fell with the same swiftness as all the others exposed to one of Midoriya's kisses did. Recovering from the slight stupor beating his teacher left him in, Midoriya grabbed one of his teacher's arms and dragged him as best he could from the ring, winning the match. And if All Might happened to pout through the rest of the lesson, or if Midnight, Present Mike and Snipe watched the whole scene unfold with glee from a few feet away, Midoriya was none the wiser. At long last the day of the hero billboard charts came. bringing with it a number of exciting events for the hero students of UA. For one, they were able to watch the top 10 heroes receive their rankings from the upper mezzanine of the theater in which the event took place, cheering loudly as All Might maintained his number 1 ranking. Next to him, Endeavor did his best to keep his composure despite being ranked number 2 once again. From there, the students met with their respective mentors before leaving to change into their costumes. UA's faculty had gathered in the reception hall, eagerly awaiting the results of their little competition. First number 1 hero, then number 1 teacher. All Might crowed, his signature smile wide and bright. I almost feel sorry for the rest of you. Don't get cocky now, All Might, Midnight retorted, her smile venomous. Last time you did, Midoriya kicked your butt. Present Mike stifled a snort, and Aizawa rolled his eyes. I think you all need to give it a rest, before making even bigger fools of yourselves. Oh come now, Eraser. Nizu chirped, watching as more heroes filtered in dressed as one another and found their seats among the sea of white linen tablecloths. A little competition is good, it helps to build morale. Aizawa was about to retort, when he caught sight of some of his students coming towards them. Oh man, this is so exciting! Kaminari exclaimed, fiddling with his gunhead mask. I can't believe we got to dress up for this. Next to him, Crimson Riot Kirishima and Yubami Ishido nodded. I got to see some of the girls' costumes and most of them are really cute. Hagakure came dressed as Mount Lady, and Azui as the washing hero. Washington Aoyama came in as Best Jeanist, Shoji as Lion Hero Shishida. Tokoyami wrestled with his Kamui Woods mask, and Yaoyorozu's Ms. Joke costume caused Aizawa's hackles to rise. Of all the heroes to dress as, he grumbled, watching as the girl imitated Joke's signature cackle. A gang orca addressed Sato eyed Shinso suspiciously as he moved towards the group. Hey, what are you doing here? I thought this event was only for work-study students. Shinso shrugged. Eraserhead's been mentoring me, so I guess that counts as a work-study. Is that why you dressed up as him? Zero teased, his costume modeled after Fourth Kind. Next to him, Edshot Ojiro ped his head curiously. Shinso hid his reddening cheeks behind his newly acquired capture scarf. Least I didn't come dressed as my brother, he muttered, gesturing to Ida's Ingenium costume. Yeah, but he always dresses like that, Koda murmured, his Mr. Brave wig tightening to one side. There was a bit of commotion from the other side of the room, and all eyes turned in shock to see the rest of their class enter. Midoriya, Uraraka, Jairu and Todoroki were all dressed as the Rabbit Hero and new number 5, Mirko. Midoriya raced over to his friends, proudly displaying his costume. Isn't it funny? Somehow, me, Uraraka, Jairu and Todoroki all chose the same hero to dress as. The others could only nod as they took in their friends' shared costume, some with more interest than others. How did that happen exactly? Yaoyorozu wondered aloud. None of us shared our costume ideas, but you'd think with how many heroes there are, we wouldn't see too many repeats. She's one of 2 female heroes currently in the top 10, Uraraka said, plucking some mochi from one of the buffet tables nearby. That's why I picked her at least. Jairu nodded, her cheeks incredibly red. I guess I didn't think through just how short this costume would be, she muttered, the class vice president graciously making a cover for her to wear. Young Midoriya, All Might called out, he and the other teachers looking a bit put out. A word please. Midoriya scampered over to them, just in time to miss the explosion sounding off from the other entrance. Bakugo, who had entered last, stomped over to the remaining 3 Mirkos immediately. What the F is this, huh? Todoroki shrugged. I knew what Midoriya was going to wear, and I'm told couples often wear matching costumes to parties. You're not even dating him, shitty half and half. We'll be engaged once my father has a chance to speak to Midoriya's parents, and we walked in together, that has to count for something. The vein in Bakugo's temple began to throb, but the explosive boy was cut off by Ishido's snickering before he could retort. And what's going on with your costume, Blasty? Thiff, do you mean? I look great. The pink-skinned girl noted the crimson studs, fur-lined flight jacket and very realistic wings with ill-concealed mirth. Oh, and I'm guessing that you chose Hawks because he's the number 3 hero, And not 'cause Mito has a super obvious crush on him. Bakugo's was murderous, but the pink tinge to his ears betrayed him entirely. Shut up. Off to the side, All Might gave Midoriya a disappointed look. So, you went with Mirko as your costume, young Midoriya? The healer nodded. Of course. It is the year of the rabbit, after all, and Mirko is a really impressive fighter. Right? Present Mike said dejectedly. She is pretty amazing. Next to him, Midnight let out a sniffle. I suppose she's lucky, being your favorite hero, Midoriya. The greenette blinked. She's not my favorite. The teachers immediately perked up, some looking more hopeful than others. Oh really? Nizu prodded, his smile devilish. Then who is, pray tell? Midoriya gave them a wide grin. Isn't it obvious? All Might's chest puffed up, only to deflate once more as the freckled boy said, Recovery Girl. Snipe let out a sound of disbelief. Recovery Girl? Well yeah. She's taught me so much about being a healer, and she's always there when I need someone to talk to. The greenette's smile softened. Plus, she reminds me a little of my mom. Midnight cooed at the display, before a thought came to her. Okay, so she's your favorite hero, but she's only the school's nurse. Who would you say is your favorite teacher, Midoriya? Tension returned to the table as the teachers awaited the healer's answer. Oh my, Nizu said, his grin widening. Now things are getting interesting. Midoriya thought about it for a moment, his expression becoming guilty. Well, it'd be really hard to choose, since you're all so amazing in different ways. I guess if I had to choose, I'd choose Mr. Aizawa. Aizawa, who had tuned out as soon as the healer had made his way over to the faculty table, turned to look at him. Really? Why? Present Mike groaned. Did you seriously just ask that? Learn to take a compliment, show. But Midoriya was nonplussed by his teacher's question. Honestly, for a lot of the reasons I like Recovery Girl so much, you're both very nurturing and always do your best to make sure none of us are seriously hurt in class. And even though it seems like you don't like my quirk sometimes, I can tell that you respect what I can do, even if it's not super combat-oriented. Had he not been in the presence of his coworkers and in need of saving face, Aizawa could have melted at the statement. Instead, he offered the smallest twitch of the corner of his mouth and a nod. Thank you, Midoriya. The healer's smile brightened. Any time, sir. Class A spent the rest of the evening eating, laughing, and, when tables were moved to make room for a dance floor, fighting over who would get to dance with Midoriya, with their teachers looking on with amusement. I knew you would win all along, Aizawa. All Might boomed out, clapping the insomniac on the shoulder. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Sure you did. From his spot at the table, Nizu grinned. I suppose everything worked out then, and with no bloodshed. Though, there's always next time. Aizawa just sighed. Bonus. Mirko thumped her foot impatiently as her assistant joined her at her table. Finally. I got a question, Yuki. Who are those brats dressed up like me? Yuki looked at the group of Mirkos dancing with one another and their fellow classmates. I believe those are UA students. One of them is Endeavor's son, and I think the one with the green hair works with Recovery Girl. The rabbit hero assessed them, before nodding her head. I like 'em, they've got good taste. I want them to be my new work-study students. Yuki balked. But Mirko, those 4 already have work-study mentors. Besides, Hawks tried to poach one of those students and, well, the assistant had noticed how the winged hero kept his distance from the students, and how Eraserhead seemed to glare whenever Hawks was in his line of sight. Mirko's smirk became sharp. So, it'll be a challenge, eh? I just don't think dash. Bring it on. Yuki let out a sigh. The bus rattled and shook as it rolled along the mountain pass, though it was as much the fault of the passengers on board as it was the rocky terrain. Aizawa turned to glare at his students. Keep it down or I'll make you all walk the rest of the way. The UA hero students were on their way to a special summer camp their teachers had arranged with the wild pussycats. It would be a good way to squeeze some extra hero training in over the summer holiday and, as Nizu had put it, a splendid way for the young heroes to bond. Aizawa guessed that the wicked principal was instead hoping for some drama on the trip that would provide him with fresh gossip. But Class 1A was far too excited about their trip to heed their teacher's words, the students talking over one another at deafening volumes as they made their plans. We should all go on a morning hike together, Yayarozu suggested. The fresh air will be so nice after being cooped up in the city for so long. Bonfires, esmores, scary ghost stories. Ashido squealed with delight. It's gonna be amazing. Oh man, I'm so pumped. Kaminari exclaimed. He leaned over the seat in front of him. Don't worry about the scary stories, Midoriya. I'll protect you. Like the nerd needs your shitty protection. Bakugo screamed in the other blonde's ear. Aizawa sighed as the chaos continued to rattle the bus, feeling incredibly grateful that he and the pussycats would be flinging them off a cliff before long. Class 1A was exhausted when they finally dragged themselves from the forest and to the lodge they'd be staying at, their muscles sore and their stomachs growling. I'd kill for a burger right about now, Kirishima grumbled, some of the others echoing his sentiment. No need for killing, we prepared a feast for dinner. Pixie Bob told them jubilantly. She, Aizawa and the rest of the pussycats were waiting for them, grinning with amusement. Koda was especially helpful, he diced all the vegetables himself. Kirishima pet his head. Who's Koda? Mandali's little cousin. She pointed to a boy no older than 8 with baseball cap and a sullen expression. He lives with us. Say hi, Koda. Koda glared at the dirty teenagers until he caught sight of Midoriya wedged between Ida and Bakugo. He stomped over to them. Who are you? Oh, my name is Izuku Midoriya. These are my friends Ida and Kachin. That's Bakugo to you, brat. Kachin be nice. But Koda paid the angry boy no mind, staring instead at Midoriya. You're pretty. Oh, that's very sweet of you to say, Koda. Let's get married. Several jaws dropped as the pussycats began to cackle. Izuku was laughing too, though his classmates didn't share in his good humor. Am married? No way, he's so young. Just who the hell do you think you are, kid? Koda tugged at Midoriya's sleeve. I'd make a good husband, promise. I have an allowance and everything, and you could live here with us. The healer stifled his laughter behind his hand. You make a very convincing argument, Koda. Okay then, I guess we're getting married. He grinned at the pussycats, each of whom were doubled over in laughter. Next to them Aizawa was holding back a snort. Todoroki narrowed his eyes. But I'm supposed to marry Midoriya. Icy hot. If the nerd's marrying anyone, it's me. Koda made sure Midoriya's back was turned before he flipped off the hot head. You snooze, you lose, Grandpa. The hell did you just call me? Kachin, I told you not to yell at him. Koda looked between them for the briefest of moments before summoning fat, crocodile tears. Don't let the mean man yell at me, wife. Please. Bakugo's eye twitched. Wife? It's okay, Midoriya shushed the boy, turning to give Bakugo a reproachful look. The blonde could only sputter in anger as the healer took Koda's hand and led him inside, the little brat turning around one last time to give the class a nasty smirk. Kaminari all but ran down the hall to the outdoor baths, eager to wash the sweat, dirt and terror of the beast's forest off of him. He slammed into Sato's broad back, a groan escaping him as his nose throbbed. Hey, what gives, Sato? Why are you standing in the middle of the hallway? Sato turned to him. That little kid won't let me use the outdoor baths. Kaminari peered around him to see Koda blocking the door to the baths, his arms crossed and his face pinched. Kirishima, Ojiro, Siro and Ida were clustered around the door as well, all of them arguing with the boy. We need to bathe, just move already, kid. No. My wife is in there bathing and I don't want you pervs spying on him. Pervs? Ida's face was burning crimson. We would never stoop to such villainy. Yeah, that's totally unmanly, Kirishima added. We just need to clean ourselves before bed, that's all. Koda was unmoved. And that's another thing. Why should you losers get to share a room with him, huh? He should be staying in my room with me. Kaminari's head was beginning to throb in tempo with his nose. Look, little dude, we're not gonna perv on Midoriya, okay? If we wanted to do that, we'd do it back at UA in our dorm bathroom. Koda gave him a scandalized look. You admit it, you're all pervs? Sato punched the blonde's shoulder. Way to go, you made everything worse. A head poked through the door behind Kota, green eyes peering at them with concern. Is everything all right? I heard shouting. Kota turned his head to look at him, stretching his arms out wide to further block the entrance. Cover yourself, wife. These pervs are here to spy on you. He deceives you, Midoriya. Aide cut in frantically. We're here to bathe, not indulge in any lecherous peeping. Kaminari peered around Sato's shoulder. Midoriya, can you come fix my nose? I think I broke it running into Sato. You know you shouldn't run in the halls, Kaminari. The healer admonished him, ignoring Kota's protests as he sidestepped the boy to examine Kaminari's nose. It's not broken, but it will be sore in the morning. Do you think it needs to be healed? Kaminari asked hopefully, leaning in. Nope. Just some ice will do. Hey Todoroki? A second head popped out. Yes, Midoriya? Kaminari needs some ice, he said, oblivious to the incredulous looks he was getting. Hey, how did you get in there? I was watching the door this whole time. I snuck by when you were arguing with Tokoyami a half-hour ago. You two were alone in there? Kaminari was beginning to regret keeping good hygiene. We had the moon for company. It was very romantic. He tossed a chunk of ice to Kaminari as he left the baths, moving to Midoriya's side. Ready to turn in? Oh, sure, Todoroki. The dual-toned boy led the healer down the hall, pausing to throw the group behind him a smug look. Kota stomped away from the door in defeat, leaving the others to their baths. The morning after they'd arrived, Kota sat right next to Midoriya at breakfast, shooting a triumphant look at Uraraka as he took the seat she'd been moving towards. Midoriya took no notice of the altercation, giving everyone at the table his usual cheery smile. Mr. Aizawa says we're starting with a hike today. Just like you wanted, Yamamo. The girl gave him a small smile. That's true, but knowing Mr. Aizawa, it won't be a pleasant one. Kota looked to Midoriya. Can I come with you? I promise I'll keep up. Bakugo glared at him. We don't need some demon little kid getting in our way. We're here to train, not babysit. Kacchan and Yaoyorozu are right. This won't be a fun hike, but I can go on another one with you when we get back. Kota pouted. Okay, but they can't come. This will be a special married people only hike. Midoriya just laughed. Okay, Kota, whatever you say. The boy grinned victoriously at the table, taking extra delight in Bakugo's irritation. He stuck his tongue out when Midoriya turned to say something to Azui. Keep your ugly mouth shut, brat. Kacchan, he didn't even say anything to you. He's so mean, Izuku. You should stop being his friend and never ever talk to him ever again. Ha! The next few days passed in a similar fashion, with Kota pulling Midoriya away from his friends and tormenting them when the healer wasn't around. He'd also taken to pulling pranks on the hero students, always running and hiding behind Midoriya should any of them dare confront the boy. He'd put glue in Kirishima's hair gel, tied Ida's shoelaces together, and had even switched Sato's sugar packets for salt ones during sparring. That kid's a menace, Siro groaned as they wrapped up their training for the day, rubbing at his shoulder where Kota had struck him with a rock. What's worse is he's fooled Midoriya into believing he's innocent. Aide fumed, his arms chopping the air rapidly. He's turning our beloved healer against us. He's a child, Yaoyorozu reminded them. He's probably just bored and looking for ways to have fun with us. No offense, Yamamo, but you're an only child, Ribbit. You've never had to deal with bratty younger siblings before. They watched as Kota plucked various wildflowers from the edge of the nearby woods, no doubt a gift for Midoriya. He's so nice to Midoriya though, Azui continued. Maybe if we play along with this whole marriage thing it will make him less awful to deal with. Hagakure let out a squeal. Ooh, what if we threw them a pretend wedding? Ashido grinned at her, though her excitement was different from the invisible girl's. Could you imagine the look on Bakugo's face if we did? Or Todoroki's? It would almost be worth the beatings we'd get, Siro commented, his eyes now scanning their immediate surroundings for wildflowers. He spotted Aide doing the same. The girls continued to whisper and plot, and Siro and Aide raced to give Midoriya their flowers. He was already sporting the ones Koda gave him in his hair and enthusiastically added theirs as well. Soon everyone was adding their own offerings until the healer's head was covered in colorful blossoms. "You look like a bush," Izawa told him, his patience with his students' shenanigans wearing thinner by the day. Still, he had trouble holding back a snort when a strong wind knocked half the flowers out of his hair, his classmates scrambling to put them all back. The girls brought their idea to Koda that night just after dinner. They'd waited until Midoriya left for dish duty and stopped Koda from following, which meant Shoji and Ojiro could do their own kitchen duties with the healer undisturbed. The boy was eyeing them suspiciously, his arms crossed and his foot tapping against the wood floors with impatience. "What do you losers want?" Yaoyorozu did her best to ignore his impetuous attitude. "We were wondering if you'd allow us to plan your wedding to Midoriya." His eyes narrowed. "Why would you do that?" "Because it would be super fun." Ashido chirped. "Weddings are just big parties, and who doesn't love those?" "Bakugo and Todoroki for one," Jair muttered dryly. Koda thought about it. "I guess that could be fun." Yaoyorozu stopped herself from sighing in relief. With any luck, Koda would be too preoccupied with Ashido's party planning to torment any of her classmates for their remaining time at camp. "I'm sure it will be a lot of fun, Koda." "Yeah, and then those losers in your class will know who Aiza's real husband is." Ashido paused, thinking. "You know," she said slyly, "you're obviously the best choice to be Midoriya's husband, but what if he wants a wife too?" Koda peered at her curiously. "What do you mean?" "Well, what if Midoriya got to have a wife as well as a husband? Do you think that would be okay?" He pondered it for a moment before a smile Yaoyorozu didn't trust crept across his face. "I guess that would be okay," he said innocently. "Only, who would be his wife?" "I would." That was too many voices. Uraraka glared at Ashido. "Don't even try it, Mina. We both know he'd choose me over you." As if, what crazy world are you living in? "He probably wouldn't choose either of you, Ribbit. Maybe he wants a wife who stands out like I do. Or maybe he wants a wife he can see, Hagakure." Yaoyorozu watched as the girls bickered, noting the unholy delight on Koda's face with a sigh. "We should have just left it alone." On their final day of camp, Ashido did in fact throw a pretend wedding for Koda and Midoriya, with balloons and streamers provided by Yaoyorozu and a cake made by Sato. The entire class was present along with their teacher and the wild, wild pussycats. The pussycats found the whole thing endlessly amusing, while Aizawa looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The two grooms were dressed plainly, as Midoriya only had gym clothes to wear and Koda had opted for his usual shorts and t-shirt, his favorite horned hat atop his head. "Dearly beloved," Ashido had called out in a chipper voice. "We are gathered here to celebrate the union of Midoriya and Koda in matrimony. There would have been a wife as well, but we couldn't decide." Uraraka, who had bitterly accepted the role of bridesmaid instead, flipped the girl off. Ashido prattled some more about love and heroes and whatever else she felt like while Midoriya hid his laughter behind his hand. "If anyone should object to this union, speak now." Todoroki was on his feet in an instant. "I object." "Of course he does," Aizawa groaned, pinching the bridge of his nose. "That I'm the one objecting. The brat's too young for you, Deku. Marry me instead." "Marry me," Todoroki insisted. "I'll give you Endeavor's agency if you do." Ida cleared his throat. "I only have a quarter share in aide, but I could pull some strings. That is to say, only if you wanted to marry. I could give you bigger companies than hero agencies." Yaoyorozu cut in, only feeling a little ashamed for playing into the ridiculous argument. "My parents are very well connected." "Stupid rich kids. There's more to love than money, you know." "It's about security, Uraraka. Midoriya, this might be the only thing I do that makes my father happy. Marry me." "Screw you and that flaming a-hole, half and half be." "I had a feeling it would end like this," Aizawa muttered, watching as Todoroki and Bakugo wrestled in the grass. Next to him the pussycats were laughing so hard they looked to be in pain. "You jerkas are ruining it," Koda yelled, stomping his foot. Midoriya looked between them all with a bemused expression. "You guys, maybe we should just call this pretend wedding off." The bus to take them all home pulled up, the tires screeching as it stopped not 10 feet from them. This stopped the fighting for a brief moment, though Bakugo and Todoroki looked close to resuming it. From one of the windows a silver-haired head poked out. Surprise! The door swung open and Eri climbed out, followed by a grinning Midnight. The girl made a beeline for her adopted father, giving the grouchy man a tight hug. Auntie Midnight said I could ride over here when the bus came to get you, so long as I did my homework and ate all my vegetables while you were gone. Aizawa hugged her back, resolutely ignoring the snickers from his students. It's good to see you too, Eri. That's Mr. Aizawa's daughter. Midoriya turned to tell Koda, but the boy had left his side and was walking over to the girl. He appraised her much like he had Midoriya, his expression pinched in thought. Eventually he stuck his hand out. Hi, I'm Koda. Eri shook his hand. I'm Eri. It's very nice to meet you. We should get married. Several jaws dropped as Class 1A stared shell-shocked at the boy. Aizawa pulled his daughter back to his side, his expression pained. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. He led her over to meet the pussycats, who were laughing at this new development just as much as Midnight was. Koda trailed after them with a pout, and the wedding was officially called off. The students broke to finish packing their things, then to the dining hall for their last dinner at camp. The adults were seated together with Eri and Koda, Aizawa keeping a careful eye on the children. Who knew Mr. Aizawa was so overprotective? Midoriya laughed, the rest of his table giving him sidelong glances. Jilted at the altar. Ashido said brightly, clapping Midoriya on the back. Of all people, I never thought it'd happen to you, Midoriya. Midoriya laughed. I'm just glad he's making a new friend. The pussycats told me how lonely he's been up here, but now I can be his friend instead of his spouse. Yeah, and now he can terrorize Mr. Aizawa instead of us, Kaminari added between bites of stew. It's all for the best. I didn't have the heart to tell Koda that I'm already engaged anyway. All conversation at the table stopped, and soon every eye had found Midoriya. What do you mean you're already engaged? Ida all but shrieked. To whom? To me, of course, Todoroki said simply. Although you forgot agree to my earlier proposal, Midoriya. I'm going to blast your face off and leave your body in the woods, Bakugo growled at the dual-toned boy. Midoriya just laughed. No, I got engaged a long time ago. He grinned over at Bakugo. Don't you remember, Kacchan? You asked me to marry you when we were 6. Bakugo hadn't remembered until that very moment. It was just before Midoriya had moved away, the two boys playing in the park near their houses. Bakugo hadn't proposed so much as ordered Midoriya to marry him, and the healer happily accepted. They'd braided rings for one another out of grass, wearing and proudly displaying them to their cooing parents. The whole table was giving Bakugo envious looks, and Todoroki looked as though someone had stabbed him. The blonde turned to smirk at Midoriya. You're demon right, I remember, and you better not forget it. Or any of you extras. Remember who Deku belongs to. It can be annulled, Todoroki said flatly. Midoriya, I suggest we head to my father's agency as soon as we return to Tokyo. I'm pretty sure he has the contracts ready. Bakugo pounced on him for the second time that day, and soon they were rolling on the floor punching and kicking one another. Ashido leaned over. I think you should divorce them both. Bonus. The students slept for most of the ride back to campus, Aizawa breathing a sigh of relief at the peace and quiet. Midnight was reading something on her phone as they rode, and Eri was fiddling one of her toys. She turned to him. Dad, what's marriage? Midnight put her phone down to give the two her undivided attention, grinning meanly at her friend. Yashoda, tell us. Aizawa grit his teeth. It's something adults do, that's all you need to know. Don't be such a stick in the mud. Eri, marriage is when two people who love each other decide to start a family together. You join that person's family, and they join yours. She chose not to bring up babies, knowing it would be the end of he if she did. Although your dad is right, it's something you'll have to wait for until you're an adult. Eri thought this over, chewing on her lip. Oh, that? When I'm an adult, can I marry Izu? I think he'd be very happy in our family. Aizawa let out a low groan, the sound drowned out by Midnight's cackle. Winter was a special time at UA, with dustings of powdery snow covering the campus, students venturing out in thick coats and colorful hats, and holiday decorations adorning every available surface. The rest of the city was no exception, with bright lights and colorful displays inviting citizens to partake in the season's traditions of food, shopping, and love. Class 1A had taken to the mall that particular day to procure gifts for their upcoming holiday party. "I just love this time of year," Ashido gushed. "Who doesn't love lights and music and presents?" "Bah!" snarled Bakugo, his holiday scowl firmly in place. "It's just cheap commercial crap. Screw the holidays. Kachin be nice, it's Christmas." "Yeah, Baku bro," Kirishima added, "stop trying to ruin our fun." They split into groups to scour for presents, Ashido and Kaminari each grabbing one of Midoriya's arms to drag him from store to store. Todoroki watched them go. "I hope Midoriya likes the present I'm getting for him." Uraraka rolled her eyes. "Let me guess, it's something stupidly expensive and extravagant, right?" "Diamonds aren't that expensive, Uraraka." "Do you even know if Midoriya liked diamonds?" Yaoyorozu asked with a sniff. "I'd think he'd prefer something All Might themed, like rubies and sapphires, and yellow topaz to accent." "Don't be ridiculous," Aide declared, his arms chopping the air furiously. "He wants something practical, like pearl inlays for his costume. Their iridescent shine is sophisticated and understated, just like he is." "Fools!" cried Aoyama, popping up between Todoroki and Yaoyorozu. "Mon Petit Verde deserves to sparkle and shine as brightly as I do. He'll need all of those precious stones and more. Silver and gold, gay apparel to don." Azui stared at him. "You would know, I guess." Uraraka had heard enough. "Stupid rich kids. You can't give out gifts to our classmates that the rest of us can't afford. You're just gonna make us look bad." "She has a point, Ribbit. We set a spending limit on each gift for a reason." Yaoyorozu deflated. "Oh, I suppose you're right. I was going to get lavish gifts for everyone, not just Midoriya, but if it makes things harder on my friends I won't do it." "Just focus on giving something simple and heartfelt," Azui advised her. "You can't go wrong with that." "Simple? From the heart? What a genius idea." Aoyama practically glimmered at the thought. The others agreed, though Todoroki took some convincing. "All right, I'll give simple, heartfelt gifts. With Endeavor's money." "Of course you will," Uraraka muttered, she and Azui leaving their wealthy friends to puzzle over what simple meant all on their own. "Think they'll figure it out? I think if Todoroki buys anything smaller than a house we can call it a Christmas miracle," Ribbit. Days later, Class 1A began preparations for their party, each student working tirelessly to decorate the common room with festive cheer. With the notable exception of Bakugo, of course. Ashido, who had brought up the idea of a holiday party, was spearheading the decoration campaign and fashioning herself the design expert as she commanded the others to execute her vision. "All right, everyone, let's see what you've got." To her dismay, Kirishima's paper snowflakes were mangled, Uraraka's popcorn strings were half-eaten, and Azui's usage of tinsel on the tree was garish to say the least. "No, no, no. This is all wrong." She turned a critical eye to Midoriya, whose Christmas wreath looked more like a life preserve covered in trash than a festive decoration. "You should all be ashamed of yourselves. These look terrible." "At least we're trying," Uraraka snapped. "You're just barking orders and complaining." Todoroki, holding a box covered in ripped wrapping paper and more tape than anyone should need to wrap a present, nodded gravely. "Just like Bakugo. Wanna repeat that, icy hot?" "Maybe we all just need a break," Midoriya said, doing his best to keep the peace. "What we need is better motivation." Kaminari called from the ladder, string lights tangled in his arms. "It's no fun decorating if it's just to make Ashido happy." The pink-skinned girl narrowed her eyes. "If making me happy isn't enough, which it should be for you, J-Arcus, then do it to make Eri happy. It's her first Christmas with us and we should make it as special as possible." It was the right thing to say, as efforts soon redoubled to prepare for the holiday party. Yaoyorozu created garlands and ornaments, Sato made all manner of cookies and a decadent strawberry shortcake, Jiraiya curated the holiday playlist and Todoroki shaped a few small ice sculptures to add to the table. Midoriya stood beside the front door, inspecting the wreath he'd made. It could be better, I suppose. It was gnarled and twisted at odd angles, appearing to be more of a jagged oval than a circle. I think it looks great, Uraraka said unconvincingly, ignoring the thump the wreath made as it collapsed to the ground. Ah, cheer up Midoriya. Kaminari chirped brightly. I've got something better than a wreath to put over the door. Tada! He dangled the branches above Midoriya's head. Mistletoe. Everyone fell silent. You didn't, Jiraiya said flatly. Oh, but I did. Some nice old man was selling it at the mall. Come on, it's tradition. Not to mention, fun. I think that might be holly, actually, Midoriya said, inspecting the plant. Kaminari only held it higher. Who cares? It's close enough. Come on, Midoriya, it's traditionin'. Todoroki stood at once. I'll kiss you, Midoriya. Like hell you will. Oh good, Bakugo's joining us, Aide muttered, pinching the bridge of his nose. Todoroki pointed to his head. You always call me a candy cane, so that makes me the most Christmas-y one here. Midoriya, don't you want to kiss Christmas? Bakugo snarled. You'll be black and blue when I'm finished, icy hot BSRD. If anyone's kissing Deku under that ragweed, it's me. Guys, I don't think I should kiss anyone. Hold up. This whole party was my idea, I should kiss him. Mina, how would you like to float to a different prefecture for Christmas? Uraraka said with false sweetness. Jiraiya hummed thoughtfully. Isn't there a song about someone kissing Santa? There's books where they do more than that, ribbit. Todoroki blinked. I could be Santa. You'll be dead meat in a minute. Midoriya watched them fight, taking small but deliberate steps to the safety of the kitchen. Once Bakugo and Todoroki had been separated, preparations continued as normal. Kaminari's holly branch had been swiftly thrown out, though several eyes darted to the waste bin with curiosity. Once preparations were completed, Eri was brought to the dorms by a sour-faced Aizawa, who declined his students' pleas to join them with as much civility as he could muster before stomping off into the snow. What a party pooper, Ashido complained. Oh well, at least we have you here, Eri. Mazel tov. That's the spirit. They gathered around the table for dinner, cheering as Tokoyami brought bags of fried chicken to the table. Hawks dropped these off for us, said he always gets extras from his favorite restaurant. Midoriya perked up, much to Bakugo and Todoroki's annoyance. Is he still here? Tokoyami shook his head. He muttered something about the internships and Mr. Aizawa plucking him like a Christmas goose, then flew off. Who cares? Kaminari hooted. It's practically impossible to get fried chicken this time of year. Way to go, Hawks. The meal passed with little fanfare, everyone absorbed in making sure Eri enjoyed herself. Once the food had been eaten and the plates cleared, the group went to sit around the tree, where a bounty of presents awaited them. We need someone to play Santa, Ashido announced, flopping down next to Eri and Aji. Todoroki stood. Does Santa still get kisses? Santa's gonna lose some teeth if he doesn't sit back down, growled Bakugo. Midoriya graciously offered to be Santa, a solution that appeased the room and allowed the game to continue. The healer passed out presents quickly and decisively, making sure Eri was first priority for receiving her gifts. He proudly handed out the gifts he'd purchased, his smile wide and bright. They're holographic All Might cards. From the Silver Age. They're not worth much now, but give it 10 years or so and these cards will be the gem of your collections. He kept the knowledge of his own superior All Might collection to himself, though it was obvious to all what he was thinking. The other gifts were by no means less thoughtful, with Uraraka's handmade bracelets easily the favorite gift. Each one was color-coordinated to match each of her friends' hero suits, with little charms on the ends to complete them. Even Bakugo seemed to like his, though he did his best to hide it. Midoriya had a large pile of gifts to open himself, making sure to pluck one out every so often and effusively thanking the person who'd gifted it to him. It wasn't until he'd happened upon a small, rather inconspicuous box that things grew heated once again. Oh, this one's from Todoroki. Simple and heartfelt, Todoroki muttered to Uraraka, a proud smile on his face. It's Iki. To my house, we're expected for family dinner next week. You'll be eating through a straw, two-faced bee. Eri, already used to the fighting between Class 1A, happily ignored the screaming and punching in favor of playing with her gifts. As the hour grew later and the night sky began to fill with fireworks and the tolling of temple bells, Class 1A abandoned the warmth of the common room to watch the display out in the chilly darkness of the campus. Bakugo, having already thrown a few explosions into the air for Eri's benefit, soon grew bored of the activity and stomped inside, eager to get back to the solitude of his room. He'd made it to the hallway when Midoriya, who had been overseeing the hot chocolate preparations with Aoyama, nearly collided with the angry boy. Oops, sorry Kacchin. He was still wearing that stupid Santa hat from earlier, the color clashing with the green of his hair. Demon nerd, watch where you're going. Midoriya only smiled. It's been a wonderful Christmas, don't you think? Eri seems to be having lots of fun. Bakugo grumbled something back, which the healer graciously accepted as agreement. It's a shame it has to end soon, it always feels like it'll go on forever, until the day after comes and all the celebrations end. We still have New Year's, you know. Oh, that's true. We'll have just as much fun on New Year's, I bet. In fact, you can count in it. From anyone else, that level of positivity would be annoying. Yet from Midoriya, Bakugo could almost call it charming. He smiled, but only just a little. Sure Deku, whatever you say. Oh, did Kaminari pull that from the trash? Looking up, Katsuki spotted more plant matter nailed to the top of the doorframe, its ovular leaves and white berries taunting him with possibility. Damn it, that's actual mistletoe. Don't those dumb sheets know it's toxic? I'll bet shitty hair will eat it on a dare and end up in the infirmary. He paused. And you better not save his sorry, but if he does. Don't be mean, Kacchin. Get into the Christmas spirit. Christmas spirit, eh? He leaned forward, his expression suddenly mischievous. Well, since we're both under this ugly but weed, Midoriya went red at the implication, shifting from foot to foot in discomfort. Bakugo sighed. It was just a joke, Deku, obviously, I'm not really expecting. Midoriya whipped his head from side to side, ensuring the coast was clear, then tilted his head up to plant a quick kiss to Bakugo's cheek. And Merry Christmas, Kacchin. He turned and ran back the way he came, his face as red as the hat on his head. Bakugo stared after him, until his brain caught up the rest of him. Ha! You call that a kiss, shitty nerd. Get your butt back here, I want another one. Bonus. It was nearing midnight when, roused from a peaceful slumber, Aizawa heard a loud knocking on his front door. He'd resolved to ignore it when the knocking grew louder and more insistent. It was possible there was a serious emergency that needed his attention, but he knew it was all the more likely someone was waiting to annoy him with something. Eri's not due back until the morning, he grumbled to himself, shuffling on slippered feet to the door and the ceaseless knocking. He threw the door open with a scowl, brows knit together as he took in the sight of three figures dressed in ridiculous outfits. The circus isn't coming until spring, go away. Midnight, wearing a rather revealing white robe wreathed in summer flowers, have him a smug look. We're here to show you the meaning of Christmas. Nizu, wearing a green robe and carrying a cornucopia, nodded along cheerfully. We'll infect you with our Christmas spirit. Present Mike, grinning from under his black hooded robe, said loudly, Totally. Get ready for a wacky night full of hijinks. Oh yeah. Aizawa slammed the door in their faces. No. Come on, we worked really hard on these costumes. Open the door, Sho. Stop being such a... Wait, what was the guy from the movie's name again? Leave before I turn you into real ghosts, Aizawa called to the door, stomping back to bed with as much force as he could in his slippers. He laid back down, willing the three to leave him alone. He heard the telltale sound of his lock being picked and let out a sigh.